It turns out I could have set the show for two. Hi guys, welcome. This is Monkey in the Morning. I'm your host, the Ranting Monkey. I'm going to try my best to do this show and make it so you guys can hear me. But I do have to be a little bit quiet tonight. There's people sleeping right above me, so I'm gonna do my best. Um, how are you? I hope you've been well. As you can probably hear, I am still sick. I don't know what the hell I got, man. It's nasty though, and I don't recommend it. I don't think it's anything you should strive for. Uh Tonight's show is brought to us by Chris Cuomo. And I put in the title revisiting it was originally revisiting a moron, but I wanted to be a little bit more specific. So it's revisiting a liar. And this comes from watching one of Warren Smith's new videos. And he brings up a podcast that I'd never seen. It's from 2 years ago in May. It'll be 2 years, where Chris Cuomo goes on stage with uh, Dave Smith, and it's on the PBD podcast, which I've heard of before, but I'm not like a regular watcher of. And it's all about Chris's COVID coverage. And I saw Warren's thing, and it got me interested. And so I come over here to watch the full thing, and I make it through Chris's opening statement. I'm like, oh no, I have to talk about this. I have to discuss this because oh my God. Okay, and here's the first time tonight that I'm going to just leave you guys with dead air for a second because I need to blow my nose. One sec. My apologies, my apologies. So this all starts, let's bring this up on the screen. Yep, I want to do that. I want to do this, and I want to do that. There we go. Um, Dave Smith is finishing his opening statement here. Well, back up just a touch. One part that we're not going to see them, as far as I know, talk about because Dave has already discussed it, is Chris Cuomo went on this podcast and oh, good morning, Alan. Thank you for the donation. It says, "Good morning, Monkey. Good morning." Um, Chris Cuomo admits he got a bunch of shit wrong, but he refuses to apologize for it. And it's one of the things that Dave Smith brings up here is that you won't apologize for stuff. And then he says this next part, which we're going to watch a little bit of what Dave says leading into Chris. And then we're going to watch Chris's opening statement, which is probably about like 10 minutes long. I don't remember the exact length of it. And it'll probably take up the rest of the show. I'll eventually come back and watch this full thing. But that's as much as I've seen is Chris's opening statement. And it was so fucking flawed. I want to talk about this because I am in a unique place. I am uniquely qualified to discuss some of the things said on this. And it's not that I'm qualified because I'm like super smart or I got a degree in X, Y, or Z. No, 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 no. It's specifically because I don't. It's specifically because I don't have any academic standing that makes my unique input as a podcaster, by the way, important to this discussion. All right. Anyway, so let's go ahead. Chris Cuomo is who we're talking about. Dangerous. But anyway, this is Dave wrapping up his opening statement.
And it seems to me that you, rather than doing what your job should have been at the time, which was to be skeptical of power and to shine.
Okay, I got to correct Dave right there. Chris Cuomo at the time worked for CNN. His job has never been to question power. His job is to reiterate what he's told to say by people in power, especially if they come from a Democratic lean. Remember, we've known they're shady since the first Gulf War. They were doing shit for Saddam, for fuck's sake. Anyway, untainted by academia. Yes. That sounds like a great podcast name, actually. I'm going to steal that one day. Anyway, sorry, Dave, didn't mean to step on you there, but you're wrong. Chris was doing his job. It's just not what we're told the press's job is.
A light against the propaganda. It seems like you ate up every single piece of propaganda, repeated all of it without any thought to whether it was true or not.
That was
and
his
then
job.
smeared millions of Americans like myself who were opposed to this stuff. So that's where my beef is. Chris.
I understand your beef.
I understand your beef. I understand your beef. It's you guys are a bunch of liars who just repeated what you were told, which is not true because they didn't just repeat what they were told. Do you remember what Chris was doing during the COVID thing over there on CNN? Remember him and Don Lemon's shows were back to back. So they had this little exchange between shows as they were switching from Don's to Chris's or the other way. I don't remember which way, who got the later time slot. But there was this banter back and forth, and often it was about how stupid anybody who didn't take the approved narrative was. Remember how he did the segments with his brother, with Chris having his brother, the governor of New York, on as his brother is actively killing people, putting sick people in with the elderly who were the most vulnerable, minus, fat people and the infirm already. But if you had a healthy population, right, the most vulnerable were elderly. There was, he wasn't just repeating, they were egging on, they were attacking. Anyway, sorry. So Chris, he understands. He understands why there's beef there, guys. But don't worry, he's not going to apologize for it. And he'll tell us why.
Why would I not apologize? An apology is when you say something that you shouldn't have said, that was wrong to say, that you said for bad reason, or you're trying to hurt.
Nope. That's not why you apologize. That's a reason to apologize. You can definitely apologize when you're trying to hurt somebody's feelings and you lie and you say the wrong thing. But when you spread massive propaganda, clear lies to people, you attack people, you should apologize for getting it all wrong. I know I give people shit because, they apologize. It shows character. There is a time when people fall back on that. Like, I can lie as many times as I want. As long as I apologize for it, people will think I'm a good person. And there is that. But when people refuse to ever apologize, it's even worse. This motherfucker, excuse me, I wouldn't, if I hurt anybody, I would apologize if I did it for the wrong reasons. Well, what are the right reasons? You gave bad information. Okay, let me ask you this, Chris. If you told somebody that they could have butt sex with an AIDS patient, they could take it in the butt from an AIDS patient and not get AIDS, and then they got AIDS, would you apologize for giving them wrong information? Or would you just be, hey, I was just trying to make you happy. I thought you wanted to have butt sex. Your motives aren't important when you get shit wrong. They might explain why you got shit wrong, but they're not an excuse. You need to apologize, you prick. God, I fucking hate these people. I've never liked Chris Cuomo. I find it fascinating that he's gone into the podcasting world. And unlike most people who come from mainstream media and go into the podcast world, he's basically just the same shitbag he was there. Even Tucker, he's like, we're going to do things just my way, and clearly veered off the path that he was on Fox. Somebody like Megyn Kelly, same thing. Just, they might have a similar personality to what they did on their shows. It's ramped up. And Chris is just the same corporate stooge. He's just the same shitbag. My guess is that only a few thousand died unnecessarily due to putting COVID patients in nursing homes with old people. Well, I mean, it's only a few thousand. Yeah. If I remember correctly, the estimate is in the several tens of thousands. Anyway, he's not going to apologize because, hey, I only apologize. Did that make sense to anybody? Was there anybody sitting at home right now going, yeah, you know what? Yeah, that's the only time I apologize too. When I completely get shit wrong, no, I don't apologize for that. It's so fucking frustrating.
None of those apply. I hear your understanding of the pandemic. I don't agree. I lived it closer than you in many ways.
I lived it. Cuomo lived the pandemic worse than anybody. Nobody knows the pandemic like he did. Do you remember when he got COVID? Remember, and there were supposed to be lockdowns, and he's supposed to be in his basement, and it turned out he was actually out trying to sell his house. You guys remember that? Yeah, by faking quarantine. Yes, exactly. I lived it. I lived it even more than you. How? What the fuck are you talking about? That is such a dumbass thing to say. It's the American press. Remember, this is 2 years ago. So he's not even that far removed from CNN when he has this talk. He's rich and not jobless. That's true. He got to go to work every day. You know, as a, what do we call them? Necessary workers. What were they? Whatever. He had to go spread the propaganda. It had to be done. And sell his house when he was supposed to be. I lived it more than you, Dave. I lived it more than you.
Closer than any of you, probably, in many ways. And there were
Name one of the ways you lived it more than we did. Just one. Just give me one. What, that you had COVID? Sorry, so did I. That you knew people had COVID? Sorry, so did I. You got to talk to your brother and try to get people fired for disagreeing with him? Yeah, that's different, but I don't think that was necessarily COVID related. So yeah, this is the kind of nonsense that these people do. Remember, Chris Cuomo is the guy who once told us that as a news person, he was allowed to see stuff you're not allowed to see, which is entirely false. It's entirely false. But this is the kind of people that go into network news. These are the kind of people who go into college like, I'm going to go be an advocate journalist. He has this special insight you couldn't possibly have. He was closer to COVID than probably you would even understand. You don't get it. You don't get it. And you can't get it because you weren't him. Yeah.
were absolutely mistakes made. The idea that it was a totalitarian regime, that's hyperbole.
I will give him that because I've heard people say that, and Dave says it a whole bunch. Was it a totalitarian regime? No, but it was probably as close as we get in America. So you can call it hyperbole, sure, and technically you're correct. But you know what people are getting at with that. And instead of just acknowledging that, oh, that's a bit overblown. You don't know COVID like I did.
My main reason for wanting to discuss this with you guys, I do this for 3 reasons.
Okay.
A lot of people would say the first is that I'm a self-loather, and I like to set myself up in very bad situations.
Okay. You're giving your reasons. You don't have to tell us what you imagine other people think your reasons are. You can, but it's a way that he's trying to humanize himself. How do I want to put this? I didn't study debate in like high school or I guess I took what Michigan considers a class that teaches debate, but it's very small. What I'm getting at is I don't have a formal education in debate, right? I don't have a formal education in communication, but I do recognize bullshit. I do recognize propaganda. I do recognize manipulation. These are all things you don't need to go to school for. Self-deprecation of a sort. Yes, exactly. This is manipulation. But anyway, let's hear his number one.
Maybe, maybe not. I think there's a huge mistake being made in ignoring this conversation. Now, you say this world of podcasts.
Okay. This is May of 2024. He thinks there's a big issue with people ignoring the conversation. And I actually do agree with him there. Ever since COVID, even during COVID, the important conversations have often been, I don't want to say overlooked because the important conversations were mostly mocked. And then after COVID, everything just kind of dies down. We have a little bit of questions of what went on, but not really. We have congressional hearings, like they dragged Fauci's old grumpy ass back there one time. But the actual problems that went on during COVID, how we had the lockdowns and the forced, I don't want to say forced vaccination because Chris goes, that's hyperbole. The near forced vaccinations. These are all things that we should be looking at still today, going, what the fuck happened here? How did this happen? And the reason we don't is because the people who would be pushing that, the media, would have to be pointing out that the people who caused the biggest problem were the media. The media were the ones pushing the bullshit. The government can say stupid shit all the time. How many times have you seen the media disagree with something Donald Trump says? And they'll go on for weeks about, hey, he said this one thing, and it was wrong. They have no problem doing that. Which one of them did that during COVID? Which one of them did that during anything with Biden? I mean, they actually redefined a recession for Biden. The reason you don't have people talking about this in a meaningful way is because if the press points out what the problems were, they're the number one problem. And you don't really want people, associating you with being the problem when they're looking for what the problem is. Hey, what's the issue here? Me, I fucked up. My bad, y'all. But you can trust me now. You can trust me now.
You're having a very limited definition of podcasts. You, Rogan, Poole, this is a very small part of what the podcast world is.
Oh, real quick. This concerns something Dave said earlier about people in podcasting. And he says at one point that he's not sure why they call it podcasting. Nobody has an iPod anymore. It's just the name that stuck. But then he points out people who do podcasts like Rogan and, well, let's be honest, they're really all talking about Rogan. But he points out Greenwald and himself and the one that they're on here. And I don't know what Chris's point is here. I know there's more kinds of podcasts. There's tons of podcasts. There's some I will never listen to that have massive followings. But it's a moot point because it has nothing to do with the fucking conversation. Oh, whoops, there we go.
Is, right? You have a lot of different ideologies there. The media, the power structures do not understand why I would be here right now. I got the same message. I did a lot of prep for tonight because frankly, this was...
I want you guys, okay, we got to go back just a second. Listen to how many sentences he starts here, how many thoughts he starts here that he never brings to a conclusion. This is something you will see liars do a lot.
Poole, this is a very small part of what the podcast world is, right? You have a lot of different ideologies.
Podcast world.
The media.
Different ideology.
The power structures.
Media power structure.
Do not understand why I would be here.
They don't get why I do this.
I got the same message. I did a lot of prep.
I got a message.
For tonight.
I got prep.
Because frankly, this was years ago. And I had to go back and understand the context of time, look at what you were saying at the time. And frankly, the idea that you were ahead of understanding is like saying a broken clock is right twice a day.
All of that just to go, you didn't really know. But this is where I said I'm uniquely qualified. I am uniquely qualified to talk about this. I don't know what Dave Smith knew. I don't. What I can tell you is that very, very early on during the pandemic, I told you guys we should have COVID parties. We should have COVID parties because the facts that we were seeing weren't suggesting that this was a massively deadly disease. There were certain people that should be out of those COVID parties. You didn't want the super elderly or the extremely obese or people with, 4 or more comorbidity, or was it 5 or more comorbidities? But for the most part, I told you guys. And what did I tell you that based on? Do you remember? 4th grade health class, because I told you guys in health class, they teach you how diseases work. They teach you how immunity works. You get the virus, you get over the virus, you now have immunity to the virus. Can it come back? Sure. It can take a while. Typically, it's not a next year kind of thing. It's why chicken pox, right? When you get chicken pox, the majority of us got chickenpox when we were kids. Never had chickenpox again. We don't get what is it when you're an adult and you get it? I forget when it comes back. Shingles or whatever. Most of it doesn't happen because the body is like, oh, that's something I need to kill. And if it comes back in your body, it fucking kills it. And I told you guys this. You didn't need, remember, you don't have a lab. You didn't need a lab. You just had to pay attention in fourth fucking grade. I also knew that when they decided with the lockdowns that this was a brand new way that they were handling pandemics. We've never done anything like the lockdowns before. They tried convincing us that, back in the Spanish flu of 1919, they locked down. No, they didn't. That was a fucking lie. They had masks. No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They tried. You are the lab or the petri dish. Yeah, I get what you're saying there. I just like that Chris's thought here. His thought here was that you couldn't possibly know. You couldn't. Yeah, you could have. All you had to understand was basic disease theory. This isn't hard stuff. This is how we get antibodies. You get sick, you get better. Your body remembers that shit. It's actually what they were trying to recreate with the vaccine. I told you also, mRNA was a last ditch effort for that. They've been trying for years to make this work. The idea behind it is noble. It's that we'll give you this thing that triggers the immunity response without actually giving you the disease. It is actually vaccine theory, but without introducing the live or dead virus into your body. We'll just code it that way. Gene therapy, yes, that's exactly what it is. But the reason mRNA had never been done on massive scale before is because it had like a 50% failure rate. For everybody who got better on it, half of them didn't. For every one person that did get better or did get the immunity or whatever they were trying to do with it, because they tried different diseases and things like that, only 1 out of every 2 people at best got any better. There was tons of money poured into it. You can still look this stuff up today. There was tons of money poured into mRNA, and the money had stopped flowing. The money had stopped flowing to them because it was a failure. Any other medicine, right? If you told people, hey, this has got a 50% chance of working and 50% not, the FDA isn't going to approve it. It's not. I think they should, as long as you give people the full information, like, hey, there's only a 50-50 chance this is going to work. And hell, maybe your disease is bad enough that you're like, yeah, I'll take that chance. But if we're talking about whether or not it would be approved, it absolutely wouldn't, because it would be considered a failure. And all the money that got poured into it in the early funding of mRNA, when we see the idea behind it, when we see the advancements it could make if it worked, all that money started to dry up because it didn't work very well. And that's what we see with the COVID vaccine. I know people want me to keep, COVID therapy. When I say vaccine, insert it yourself there, right? But we see that with the vaccine. When Joe Biden comes out and tells us, hey, you can't get this if you get the shot, that wasn't true. And people kept getting it. A lot of people didn't. A lot of people, it worked. It worked just fine for them. If it didn't turn their heart into a stone. But it did help some people. It did have the immune response it's supposed to. But it was very iffy. And all of this was known. All of this was known about the mRNA not working, about how disease theory works. Do you remember them telling you? Do you remember them telling you that getting the vaccine was actually better for your body than getting the disease itself? That the antibodies would last even longer? They had no way of knowing that. And we knew at the time they had no way of knowing that. But they still, And if you don't take it, you're an idiot and you're going to die and you deserve to die. I had COVID twice, both times after I got the 2 shots. Uh, if we're being honest, I don't know how you got your shots, but you probably didn't get it because of the shots. You probably got it because you went to get the shots and somebody where you were had it. 0 long-term studies. Yes, they do come up in the parts that I watched of Dave Smith watching this. They talk about like the long-term effects and stuff. Chris, at this point in his life, was really, really worried about long COVID. I can't help but laugh every time I say long COVID. He was very concerned with long COVID. In fact, he, according to him, was taking ivermectin because of long COVID while this was being recorded. I think that's an important. He says it's different. You see, ivermectin can help with long COVID, but it couldn't help with COVID. Just gonna leave that there.
You didn't like things. You were right to not like them. I didn't like them. But to say
you could have said that on air. You know that, right? This is one of those times I'm going to talk way too much. You could have gone on air and say, hey, look. I don't like that we have to get this shot, but we have to get this shot. You never fucking did that. You never did. You had every opportunity to make it at least seem like an inconvenience to you. And instead, what you did was vilified people who had questions. And you can sit there and say, Dave didn't know. Okay, fine. Let's say even the stuff that I just told you. Let's say Dave didn't pay attention in 4th grade health class. So he had no idea about germ theory or about how antibodies are made. Again, 4th grade material. So he didn't know any of that shit. He was still right. He was still asking questions. You weren't. You were just repeating the bullshit. You don't get to sit there and tell somebody, hey, you were wrong. You didn't know. No, you don't get to do that. You were the one who was clearly wrong. And at the very least, Dave was asking questions. Even if he was wrong in his questions, at least he asked them. You're the newsman. How the fuck did the guy with a podcast ask better questions than you? And for the record, you didn't even have to go to health class, because if you paid enough attention at the time, there were enough of us who were saying, oh, that don't make no sense, that you could have been like, wait a minute, you're right, that don't make no sense. Wait, you're telling me that natural antibodies are worse than fake ones that only work half the time? That doesn't make any goddamn sense. You could have been even just half a bit skeptical, half a bit. Of course, you wouldn't have had your job. They'd have kicked your ass off the TV immediately. They would have locked you down. Remember most of the conservatives who got kicked off of social medias and stuff, it wasn't over the election. There was a decent portion of that, but that's not where the big push from the media establishment, the social media establishments got pushback from the Biden administration. They got some for January 6th, but most of it was about COVID. My, at the time, only problem that I ever got in trouble with was for COVID stuff, which, by the way, I was correct about. I still say we should have had COVID parties. You couldn't know that, monkey. Yeah, actually I can, because I did pay attention. I aced my 4th grade health class. Thank you very much.
knew things is not accurate in terms of what you like them. But to say you knew things is not accurate in terms of what I've seen and what you put out.
I haven't seen what Dave said or put out, but I was absolutely accurate, and I did know things. I hate to keep pointing it out, but I mean, middle school. I learned it wasn't even middle school. It was elementary school. We learned this shit in elementary school, Chris. To say you knew. Yeah. Because germ theory hasn't changed. You dumb motherfucker.
They were operating on guesses. Now that gets much more powerful when we get into the vaccine.
They were operating on guesses. No, they weren't. That's a goddamn lie. They weren't even guesses. See, let's talk about things like hand washing. The first controversy I got in on this channel over COVID was the hand washing thing. Because I'd seen an episode of Joe Rogan and there was a doctor on there who said, the hand washing thing, you should wash your hands, but it's not going to stop COVID at all. And I listened to his reasoning, and he's talking about it and how quickly COVID died, how quickly it or the conditions it has to be in to stay in the air, and the idea that you would shake somebody's hand and then wipe your nose and you get COVID made no sense. And listening to the expert talk about it, yeah, that's true. What Fauci and them did was not look at anything. They didn't look at any actual studies of how the disease was spread or anything like that. Instead, they said, you need to stand 6 feet away from each other. Why? Because 6 is more than 5 and less than 7. That's why. They weren't guessing. They literally just made shit up. These are people who told you to put a mask on your face, a mask that could not stop the particles of the infection. The infection was too small for the mask to stop it. In order for a mask to work, you had to have an N95 or better. And they're telling you to go get surgical masks, get little paper fucking masks that don't stop the disease. And I got into, that's another argument I got into with somebody here. Like, it might catch some of it because not every particle is going to go through the weave. Some of it's going to hit the weave, and yeah, you might lower your chance a little bit. But what you're not doing is stopping it, because it can get through the filter. This is like saying if you take a colander, right, and you pour your spaghetti into it and all the water goes through it, but the colander is going to catch just a tiny bit of that water because there's places in it that stop the water from going through. Look, the colander's wet now. That shows that some of it got on the colander, therefore not all the water got through. Therefore, you didn't actually dump out any of the water. That is the thinking that they used. And again, this is another thing that was known at the time. And Fauci has admitted he lied about masks. Now, he flip-flopped on it. He was saying that he lied about not needing masks because they wanted to keep them for the medical personnel. The medical personnel that it didn't help either? for fuck's sake. But Chris here, by the time that the whole conversation with masks comes up, Fauci's already told that lie. And it's not that far in that he admits that he told that lie. And we were still supposed to, they weren't guessing, Chris, they were lying. That's the important part here. Just like he's going to make a big deal. And I don't remember if it's in the opening part or if it's in one of the parts I saw in Dave Smith's video, but he makes a big deal about how, hey, it wasn't Fauci. It was China. It was China. It was China. He actually says it repeatedly, like, it wasn't so-and-so, it was China. It wasn't this, it was China. Hey, Chris, where'd China get the money for that? Huh? Where? Do you remember the video where 9 Faucis were arguing with each other? I don't, but that would be amazing. If you're already sick, you could wear a mask so you don't sneeze, cough, mucus onto the people around you. But that's the only thing it's really good for. Yes, but you're right. But the point being is that those masks didn't actually stop it. It would lower the chances. The surgical mask wouldn't. So okay, let's do an experiment. Put one of those masks on and put a clean sheet of paper on the desk in front of you and sneeze through that mask. There's still going to be particles that end up on the paper because the mask isn't rated to stop it all. A lot of it'll be caught by the one you're wearing, but it doesn't take that much to infect somebody. It's not like like you need a certain amount of particles to land in your nose to finally make you sick. It can come from just one. But anyway,
In terms of the pandemic in general, the idea that we were doing things in the United States that were just so crazy is demonstrably false because it was happening everywhere else in the world.
This is such a false fucking argument. Hey, that we were doing something crazy that's nonsense. It was happening everywhere. If everybody does something crazy, it doesn't make it less crazy, right? Like if 100 people light their nipples on fire, lighting your nipples on fire doesn't suddenly become a normal thing. Everybody was doing it. Okay. Everybody was making mistakes. For the record, the reason most of them were doing it was because of the WHO. The World Health Organization was the one going, hey, we need to do this. And trying to grab power. Do you remember their power grab at the end? Where they were like, and in the future, you guys have to listen to what we say on pandemics. If you don't, we're going to take your country from you. The idea that just because everybody else was doing it, it wasn't insane. It was insane. Again, I cannot stress this enough. The whole lockdown thing came from a 15-year-old girl's science experiment. It was her science fair project. And her daddy, who happens to work for the government, was like, hey, my 15-year-old had this idea for her science project. But her science project was based in a lockdown scenario in a very limited scope. So she was in the scenario that she did for her science project. It was about a disease spreading through her school. Frosted, thank you. But everybody was kung fu fighting. Yes. Everybody was kung fu fighting. Do, 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 do. Her idea was to lock it down and then nobody comes into school, then the disease doesn't spread, right? And yeah, that could happen. That could work. When you're trying to do that on a worldwide scale, doesn't work. What works and what we've seen work over and over again is you lock down the vulnerable people and you lock down the sick. That's it. You don't lock down all the fucking healthy people. There's no reason to. That idea came from a 15-year-old girl, and it became worldwide policy. Yeah, it's fucking retarded. Anyway.
So it's not like just the U.S. decided to go batshit crazy. And
nobody said just the U.S. went batshit crazy. Fuck, we talked about Australia on many occasions. You fuckers got it worse than we did. We might get yelled at about going back inside, but you guys had absolute police lockdown. It was fucking insane. The idea that the United States, nobody said it was just the United States, you fucking asshole. And nobody said that it was good that these other places did that. The reason Dave is concentrated about the Israel, I just read the word Israel in chat. Sorry about that. The reason he's worried about the American side of it is because he's talking about what happened where he lives, you moron. See, this is why I almost called him a moron, but I settled on liar to be more specific. Don't you laugh at that because you made me say the wrong word. This is why I don't read chat, you jackasses. Anyway, here we go.
I couldn't wait for the ride. That's not the case.
Wait, let's go back.
It's happening everywhere else in the world. So it's not like just the U.S. decided to go batshit crazy and I couldn't wait for the ride. That's not the case. Why I'm doing this is, here's my big concern. I have no problem with you laying into me. And I think you're funny. And I think you're smart, and I understand why he.
You see that? See what he's doing? This is more manipulation. This is more manipulation. Oh, you're a good guy. I get you. You're right to pick on me. Does anybody? No, I was going to say, does anybody fall for this shit? But truthfully, most people do. It's not that hard to manipulate people, especially with something like this. You just glaze them over just a little bit. Oh, you were right to give me shit, and you're so funny. You're so funny. He's, for the second time, telling us why he's doing this, even though he's yet to tell us why he's doing this.
Believes in you. I do. Because I didn't know who you were. Now I've listened to 19 hours of what you do. Why you want to call yourself, as somebody who ever wants to be in politics, Legion of Skank, I have no idea why you want to identify with that word.
Isn't he supposed to be telling us why he's doing this? I don't know why you'd want to be called Legion of Skank. Why did he touch him? That's double manipulation. Yeah, if somebody is touching you while they're talking to you, it is a manipulation tactic. It doesn't mean they always know they're doing it. This is something that happens, especially like in flirting and stuff. Women will like touch your arm or touch your shoulder or something. That it's a sign, and many women don't know they're doing it. And I know there's some of you out there like, yes, they do. No, they don't. There's actually a great video from the feminist days where there was this chick who was like really upset because a guy wanted to date her, and when she said no, he left her. He's like, I'm not going to be friends with you anymore. But she shows a video of one of her friends, and they're like, hey, are you guys dating? Talking about the guy she'd been talking with. And she's like, no, why would you say that? It's because she was doing things like putting her hand on him and giggling at all his little jokes. And she was doing all the classic, this is going to sound so sexist, the classic female manipulation things. And I not all manipulation is necessary. I guess it is better to be honest, but I don't think all manipulation is, how do I want to say this? Because I do think it's bad, but it's not malicious. That's how I want it. Not all manipulation is malicious. Evolved Potato, thank you. Speaking of Australia, we now have a couple of states that are literally apartheid states. Aboriginals now have greater say in South Australia and Victoria than every other citizen. Some of our racial government members didn't even get any votes to get in. Oh, that sounds about right. That sounds about right. Has anybody been watching Matt Walsh's series about the true history of slavery and the true history of the American Indian? You made me think of him with that comment. I realize I'm talking about American Indians, but you guys should check those out. It's not women's fault. It's just their natural state. True. All right, anyway.
But we'll talk about that after this tonight.
Sure.
Here's what I want, okay? And Pat knows this already. Do we know what the vaccine is doing in people's bodies right now?
No, we don't. And that is a fair question, and that is something that should be being looked at. Absolutely.
No. Do we know what COVID is doing in people's bodies right now?
In most people, it's not doing anything. The virus has been killed by their immune system, and it's dead. That's like asking, hey, do we know what the chicken pox is doing in your body right now? Yeah, there's nothing. It's dormant. It's dead. And if it tries to come back, even my system, the guy who's sick all the goddamn time, who was a sickly child and is still sickly as an adult, my immune system kicks the shit out of chicken pox.
No. I talked this week in preparation to be with you guys to two different people who are at the top of the research ladder of long COVID.
Long COVID, also known as bullshit. I know. Taylor Lorenz has it, unless she needs to go out without her mask.
That is a very pale distinction. They are paying very little attention to this. There are millions of people for whom COVID is not over. Every research.
COVID's not over for any of us because it's out in the wild now, and it's going to keep coming back year after year. So far, there's no evidence that it's like the flu, because the flu has been around basically since the early 1900s. So the flu we deal with each year, the A and B influenza, but there's no evidence that COVID is going to be anything like that. It seems like if it is going to stick around and that our bodies will still accept the disease, it's more like a common cold. But I mean, he does. No, we really don't know long term because we haven't been through the long term yet.
I talked to said we are understanding now that the reach of COVID, the flu that we have now is from 1918, right? Everybody knows that. It's just changed over time. They believe that
it hasn't changed all that much. It really hasn't. This is one of the things I talked about early on. Another one that people got mad at me for. The variants of COVID. The COVID. Look how fast changing. The mutations of it, first of all, the ones that we know about it pretty much made it a bitch disease. But more importantly than that, viruses don't change that quickly. You know, they talk about how viruses change, and this was another thing with like zoological transformation. Another one that people are like, monkey, you don't know what you're talking about. When I said the chances of catching something from an animal are pretty fucking slim, it doesn't happen all that often. Like, no, it happens all the time. If everything they told us during COVID was true about how much diseases change, how easy it is to catch it from animals, we would have been wiped out a long time ago. A long time ago. So, anyway.
This is happening with the COVID virus.
Am I a lucky bitch for never getting COVID? You probably had it and didn't realize it, because most people who got it got the sniffles. I know we're still not supposed to say that, but that's the honest to God's truth.
Which is in part why it's important to know where it came from, and they shouldn't have surrendered that. And we can talk tons about it, and I can talk to the doll as if it were Tony, but I don't believe that he should be the boogeyman in this. I think
he should absolutely be the boogeyman in it, because he gave the funding to the Chinese so they could do what he wasn't allowed to do here. The experiments to try to make these diseases more catchable by humans, which is what was going on in the COVID lab, that was paid for by us, and it was highly illegal for Fauci to do that. That's why he went through a shell company to do it. He gave money to a shell company, which then gave it on to the Chinese. Weaponization, you know, I maybe I'm just naive. It's possible that I am. That's definitely a possibility. But I do believe that the research that these guys had at least somewhat noble intentions. They all freaked out over SARS. Remember, COVID is just SARS-2, right? The freak out over SARS scared a lot of people, and it shouldn't have. The reason SARS was so scary to people is because about 10% of the people we know had it died. But when you look at the actual numbers, it's really not that bad. Only about 8,000 people got SARS, and about 800 died. And if you have a disease where 10% of the people are dying from it, that is a massive problem. That is a massive issue. Something like, hey, we got to step in here. But the problem is SARS was over so fast. We actually don't know how many people got SARS. We know how many people were tested positive for SARS. And that's a big difference. But because of that, they were so scared about the next pandemic, and they ended up causing one. That is the best case scenario. The best case scenario is that they did it on accident because they were trying to do the right thing. And you know what? That's good enough for me. I don't need to make it worse than that, because the idea that we need to make this disease worse so that we can kill it still means you have to make that worse disease, a disease that there's a good chance will never happen. And the idea, this is the scientific concept. When you get these fucking idiots, it's almost insane, actually, to be like, hey, this bad thing could happen, so let's make it happen so we find a way to stop it. That's what they did. And while the intention is noble, the idea behind it is batshit insane. It's like, if we never make this disease, then we'll never have to deal with it. But there is the off chance that one day in the far future, somebody could be hanging out with these bats, and it could jump to them, and it could change, and then it could infect humans. So why don't we just make it so it can infect humans now and then find a way to kill it? That's batshit insane. That's just, it's ludicrous. Why do they use a CRISPR machine to add HIV to bat virus that cannot jump to humans then? Again, this is all because of the SARS virus. SARS came from what is it, the pangolins? Is that the one that SARS gave us? And the concern was that, remember, the bat guano the bat cave, where they say the bats come from, was it 800 kilometers east or west of the Wuhan virus center? That virus was like 96% the same as the COVID that ended up infecting us. So, in realistic terms, if it was going to jump to humans, COVID probably was as close to what we could imagine it was going to be. I'm not saying what they did was right. I'm saying that there is a case to make that they were trying for a noble cause. Hey, Jack, how you doing, my friend?
I'm okay. How are you?
Oh, I'm still sick, but I'm hanging in there.
You sound like shit.
Yeah, I should be sleeping, but sleep has been elusive, and fuck it, I don't care.
Sleep is a gift by the gods.
We're watching Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
We're watching a 2-year-old video of Andrew Cuomo having a debate with Dave Smith about COVID and his coverage of COVID.
Yeah.
And God, this guy's an asshole. Faithless says road to hell and all that. Yeah. I'm not saying that there was no idea to weaponize COVID. I'm not. What I'm saying is it doesn't matter what the motive was, even if you give it the best case scenario that they actually were trying to stave off a pandemic in the future. It doesn't make any goddamn sense, because in order to do that, you have to create the thing that would cause a pandemic in the first place. Where if you didn't do that, that doesn't exist, and you don't have to fight it. So even if we give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they were just trying to do the right thing,
sure,
the road to hell, the idea that you have to create this possibly world-ending virus in order to stop it is fucking insane.
I would argue it's not just insane, it's evil.
If your intention, I wouldn't say it's evil, because if your intention actually is saving humanity from this horrible thing, that's a noble goal.
That's but then evil. To purposely develop that so that you can defeat it, that's kind of evil, man.
I see it as stupid. I see it as short-sighted. There's a lot of adjectives I'd use, but I wouldn't call it evil. Now, if you know there's a good chance it's getting out, or if you did it to get it out, oddly enough, your people seem to be the least affected by it. And we start getting into evil territory.
Yeah, I definitely think there's an argument to be made for sinister motivations here.
Isn't it kind of weird that, it started in China, it gets loose in China, and yet somehow it's honkies who suffer the most?
Yeah, no, I'm with Black Romeo. It's like starting a fire so you can put it out.
But we do that to teach people how to put out fires. That's actually how they teach people to put out fires.
Yeah, but this is a highly contagious wildfire.
Yeah.
The regular wildfires are not that. I mean, the analogy is limited because wildfires aren't as a threat to humanity. But
I think it's actually a very good analogy there, because that's what I'm trying to get at. Is I'm not saying we should do it. I'm saying that there are arguments for doing it that aren't necessarily evil. I get your point, but real quick, Assassin of the Gray, thank you so much for that double feminist $12 plus tip. Feminist $12 times 2 plus tip. This was a Chi-Com prototype bioweapon that got loose before it was ready, and time to stop pretending otherwise. I don't have evidence that that's true. That's why I will not embrace that theory.
And again, real quick, thank you, Alan. Hello, my friend. Hi, Alan. Hope you're doing well, man. I'm not prepared to go either way on that one yet, because that it could be a plot by the Chinese government, or it could be a plot by the incompetence of our idiots like the terror gnome, because he just wanted to see if he could do it.
And don't forget, this was still funded by us.
Yeah, I think that it may not necessarily be a government-run thing. It's just a bunch of scientists who wanted to play God.
Yeah. All right, let's get back to this idiot.
China's the boogeyman, and they can't get at China, so they go with Tony. But we'll have the conversation. I want people to.
That was him trying to make it not Fauci's problem. Hey, don't blame him. Yeah, fuck Fauci.
No, it's totally Fauci's fault.
Recognize and get behind a common cause. That's why I'm here, okay? This is not set up to go well for me. That's okay. I've been beaten up by, people I'd rather be around much less than you guys. So
there's a moment in this. I was telling them, Jack, that I saw this on Dave Smith's channel. There's a moment in this where Chris Cuomo is called out for something he said on the air, and Chris is like, I never said that. And they bring up the clip of him doing it. It's fucking beautiful.
Wow.
This is a step up. There has to be a review of the entire pandemic. A 9/11 style commission where you get people who Dave likes, who Pat likes, who scientists like, who the right likes, who the left likes. We did the same thing after 9/11 and it worked.
It didn't work, actually. But let's be as kind as we can to 9/11. All the commission did was evaporate our rights and make plane boarding take forever. Has there been any? I just want to point out that before 9/11, the last time America had been attacked was a decade before. That we prevented it since doesn't mean that. How many people have been arrested for trying to blow up planes and stuff? None. Yeah. The reason the 9/11 commissions happened, it was because they wanted Americans to feel like something was done. And the truth is, if terrorists want to attack, they'll find a way to fucking attack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick. Thank you, Frank. You're looking for is like the firefighter who set someone's house on fire just so they can come save them and be a hero. I think that's what Fauci was going for. I think he wanted to be the hero that stopped the big thing or something.
I think it's very easy to look at, especially somebody like Fauci, who was a proponent of what's the actual term for it? I forget. When you make the virus worse. Gain of function. Thank you. He is a advocate for gain of function, but he knows that normal people consider it fucking insane. And he wanted to, like you said, be the hero and prove, see, we can make it all better if we just do this really insane step first.
Yeah, do it in a Chinese lab where it's going to be everything's half-assed, coated in lead, and have the worst safety standards outside of India.
Yes. Security theater. Yes, exactly. That's what 9/11 got us. 9/11, yeah. The only thing we learned there is like, oh, these agencies don't talk to each other. So now we need this massive over agent. No, you didn't. All you had to do is like, hey, dickhead, if you hear something, call Joe over at the CIA and find out what he knows.
You would think so, but a lot of these agencies are very territorial.
Yep.
And they don't like to share because they want all the credit. They're spotlight hogs.
And it hasn't gotten any better by putting them under the umbrella of Homeland Security.
No, it's more for appearances.
Yep.
But on the upside, they will juggle your nuts because they can.
All right.
None of them were currently in office. All of them were respected enough. They had a diverse set of opinions. They looked at the situation. They came up with a set of directives, and we followed almost none of them.
Yeah, see, it was hugely successful. Even by his own take, we didn't even follow their recommendations. Chris, you're an idiot, man. You're a fucking idiot. All right. Have a good night, bud. Pyrus is heading to bed.
Oh, have a good one, Pyrus.
So it can be flawed as well. You have to look at what you didn't like early on. Masks, lockdowns, understanding of the case structure, what we did in schools, what we did.
Yeah, let's talk about what we did in schools. Because his whole thing here, Jack, is that nobody could have known. That Dave, people like you and me, we just guessed right. We just guessed right.
Yeah, we're total fucking idiots. We just guessed right.
How early on did we tell you this isn't affecting children? And that wasn't us doing any research. It was the fucking CDC.
Yeah. They weren't shy about this.
And the teachers' unions are the ones who got schools shut down. They were the ones, I don't want to go to work. Because the kids had no problem because they didn't carry the fucking disease. For some reason, their bodies killed it quickly. Guessed right with 100% accuracy. Yeah. I am willing to believe I got something wrong about COVID. And if somebody can tell me it, I'm happy to learn. But most of the things, like masks, told you pretty much instantly. Unless you're using the N95s, you're not doing any good. I still sold them because they were cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like money.
I told
like, share,
you guys,
subscribe, buy our stuff.
told you guys because there was a big discussion. Oh, can you give it to people if you're not symptomatic? And they're like, there's this one case in Asian country, I believe it was in Korea, where somebody who didn't have the disease had no signs of the disease, no fever, no smell loss, no coughing, none of this. But she gave it to all of her family, and they know they gave it to all of her family because she's the only one that saw them all. And they were in different places.
A million different ways.
It was one goddamn study, and it was anonymous. There was absolutely no proof of transmission without asymptomatic transmission is what it's called. There were no cases confirmed of asymptomatic or systemic transmission. But every one of these assholes pushed it. You know why we look for asymptomatic transmission? Because almost every disease we know about, you have to be symptomatic, and it's only able to be passed for like the first 3 days. Even if you continue having symptoms after those first 3 days, you can't pass it anymore. So for this to have had where you could still pass it without a fever would have been extraordinary. But that's not how it was told on the news. They're like,
well, they scare you.
They're not sure if you can pass it. It went from we're not sure to if you can pass it to we're pretty sure you can. Even though, again, zero evidence. Zero.
Well, look, we have to keep people afraid so that they will do exactly what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, educate them.
There was a guy recording videos of bodies everywhere, and I'm pretty sure he vanished without a trace. There was so much weirdness about the beginning of COVID. Do you remember the people just passing out in
China? Yeah,
China?
That was weird.
And then that just went away, which is kind of weird.
That was very weird. I don't know. Maybe there was a second disease that piggybacked on. Maybe that was like propaganda.
It was propaganda. That's all it was.
I think it was sexy Asians just laying down at the thought of me.
I think maybe it was people scared of their government over there because they're like, oh shit, I sneezed and they're going to kill me now.
Yeah, there were people with bad credit scores that wouldn't get to go to the hospital otherwise. So they're feigning so they could get free rides.
And then they end up in a makeshift building that collapses on itself.
Yeah, or welded into their homes.
Welded into their homes was another good one. All right, back to Dickhead.
In communities, what we did with businesses. Then came Operation Warp Speed, what we did with that. Then came the implementation of the vaccine, how we did that, and why. Mandates. All of it should be reviewed because I'm going to tell you something. No disrespect.
Okay, I'm sorry, Chris. You're not wrong. It should all be reviewed. And as I told you guys earlier, it won't be because then the news would have to admit that they're the ones who lied to you the whole time.
Yeah.
But none of this should need reviewed because all of this should have been done by your bitch ass while it was going on. What? Now, yeah, there's parts of it that you can't see in advance, like you don't know what the long-term effects of the shot are. Fair enough. In 2020, you didn't know what the long-term effects would be. Fair. However, you could look at the CDC numbers and see that kids got the flu more often than they got COVID, and then been like, why the fuck are we shutting down schools?
Monkey, the flu vanished during this time.
Not for kids. Remember, with children, more children got and died of the flu than got and died of COVID.
That was sneaky COVID. That was Transformer COVID.
Yeah,
it's like long COVID, but it mutates to look like something else. I'm pretty sure Taylor Lorenz told me that.
But anytime somebody would point this out, they would go, but there was this one kid. You mean the fat kid with MS?
Yeah. Well, we don't talk about how he looks, Monkey. Don't be fat phobic. He was perfectly healthy, like that 400-pound teacher that had no other symptoms and died.
That was the other one I was going to bring up, because they're like, teacher with no other comorbidities, and they show her face, and even in the picture of just her face, you can see like 3 chins.
Yeah. They had a wider photo of that they like scrubbed right away because it was obvious she was like easily 300 pounds.
Thank you, Michael. Asymptomatic transmission makes no sense when you realize symptoms are how diseases spread. True. This is a place where I'm not qualified to speak on it, but here's my thought on asymptomatic transmission. In diseases where we think there is asymptomatic, or in some at least, it's just that the symptoms aren't the known symptoms, or it's such a mild symptom that you don't notice it yourself. And
yeah, they just don't know what to look for yet.
Yeah. With like let's say that thing in Korea was true, right? That chick, she was asymptomatic and she gave it to her whole family. We do know that a lot of people who got it, didn't even know they had it.
Mm-hmm.
They found out from the nose swab later that they had it.
Yeah.
So it's very possible that she was symptomatic. It's just such mild symptoms that it didn't register to her. But they're like, she didn't have a fever. Fever wasn't the only symptom.
Well, I know some people whose regular body temperature is slightly lower than normal people's. So when it actually goes up to like 98.9 or something, that's actually a fever for them.
My body temperature when I was a kid ran high, and I figured this out very early. It used to my temperature used to run at 99.1.
Oh yeah.
And if you went to the nurse's office and you had even a light fever, they would send you home. So if I wanted to go to school for the day, I'm like, oh, I don't feel good. Go down to them, they'd test he's hot, and they'd send me home. It was great.
Wow.
Yeah. I was about 10 when I figured that out.
Sneaky kids.
I didn't use it all that often, but I'm not going to lie, I did use it. Anyway.
No, that's not one you bust out every day. They figure it out pretty quick.
You would think that the school would have caught on. It's like, it's always 99.1 every time.
Well, I guess that's what happens when they don't have a Homeland Security for schools. The nurse isn't talking to the principal.
True.
Information doesn't get passed along.
All right, back to dummy here.
Respect, okay? I study this all the time, okay? Sometimes I'm taken out of context. I'm not vaccine injured. I had my symptoms before I got vaccinated. Could the vaccine be doing?
You had your symptoms. Oh, I forgot, Jack. He has long COVID.
Oh, yeah.
He's on ivermectin right now, as this is being filmed 2 years ago, by the way. So he may have gotten over it. But he had long COVID, so that's probably the symptoms he's talking about here.
Yeah, he's going the distance. Oh, brother. I kind of hate how he does hand gestures.
Oh, God.
It reminds me of like somebody new at QVC trying to sell me a cookware set or something. As a hand talker, I understand what he's doing here, but he's so exaggerated with it. Yeah, he's not good at it.
All right.
Something to my body. Maybe. I don't mean to sound conspiratorial about it, but they do know that what they didn't know, and I'm sorry if it's too in the weeds.
They do know what they didn't know.
Wow. Books is good for the brain. Jesus
But I
Christ.
tell you, we can't just talk around this with clever slogans and digs. It's not helping us. We're not getting anywhere, okay? They now know that what they didn't know at the time with the vaccine development, even though they used it for AIDS and Zika and Ebola.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. They tried to, but it didn't work.
Yep.
This is what I was telling you guys at the top of the show when it comes to mRNA. Yes, they did try it for other things, and the success rate at best was 50%. The best studies they did got 50%. That's why it had no funding. Anyway.
They didn't know that when they put it in my body and they put it in your body,
Never made it into mine.
the rates, I mean, look, you can applaud it as a choice, but there are several facts, okay, that we know. One is they didn't know how much spike protein my body would make or for how long versus his, okay?
The idea that they don't know that medicine works different in different people is fucking retarded, Chris.
Well, he's one of the special elites, because he's a journalist.
This is why natural immunity makes more sense than trying the spike protein thing. Because if mRNA did work, Jack, he's right. They wouldn't know what the difference is because every person is different. And they could do all the trials they wanted to, and you could still be that one person that it doesn't work on. But your body killing it itself, that's a pretty, biological process.
What? And that's crazy talk.
I might make more antibodies than you, or you might make more than me, but it's still going to work the same because it killed the virus in our bodies. Anyway. They didn't know that medicine works different in different people. He said this out loud after he just told us he did. I study this all the time. Dude, what are you reading? Haven't you even seen like commercials for ED medicine that say, hey, for some people, this will make your dick hard for days?
Yeah, you should see a doctor if that's happening after 4 hours. Just saying.
The idea that you do know, Chris, some people can't have certain medicines because they're actually allergic to them, right?
Oh, that's crazy talk, Monkey. A journalist didn't tell me that yet.
He talks to researchers and fuck right off, Chris. Anyway.
And that is huge in terms of deciding what kind of complications you can have. The idea that the vaccine is poison.
They didn't know that medicine affects people differently, and that's huge in knowing what the side effects could be.
Wow, Captain Obvious there. We've known that for 700 years?
He's not even right on that, because take any medicine out there, right, that has the long list of possible side effects. Yeah. That long list eventually ends. It's not like 10 years down the road, some guy's going to take it and suddenly his dick explodes.
No, you don't know that, Monkey. That's a possibility. Just like a black hole could open up and swallow an airplane.
We do trials all the time to find out what the adverse effects are, what the side effects are. They could. No way to figure that out, man.
Look, so you don't know the side effects till you inject people with it. It's like passing the bill so you can read what's in it.
Yeah.
You just have to trial and error that shit on live people. That's what Chris is telling me, and I trust him because he's a journalist and he says stupid shit with confidence, right?
He's rich, and rich think that they are smarter than poorer people, or than people poorer than them. Just to reiterate, this is Chris Cuomo, who once told the entire country that as a journalist, he's allowed to see things you're not allowed to see, which is totally wrong.
Yeah, it's
this.
bullshit.
I don't think that this is necessarily because of his wealth. I think he has an inflated opinion of himself because he's a journalist, and especially the people who work for network news is CNN is probably the fucking worst for it. These people think that they are so far above the rest of us.
Oh, well, I mean, the peasant class.
And while the people who do make it onto the network get very rich, the arrogance and assholishness start well before that.
Is demonstrably false. How do we know? Because of what happened once people started taking the vaccine here and everywhere else in the world. The correct pushback to that.
Actually, we know the vaccine is poison because technically it turned people's hearts to stone.
Oh,
does that mean
blood
it's
clots?
I would argue that all medicine is a form of poison.
Yeah, that's why they have the snake on the staff there.
It's literally to go in and kill something in your body. Now, is it necessarily deadly poison? No. Fuck, man, you take ivermectin wrong, you will fuck yourself up, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't take it if your doctor recommends it. Yeah, pretty much all drugs are poison, bro.
It is not everybody.
Hey, he finally said something right, but you know what, Chris? We were saying this at the time. Jack, you went to college, got one of them degrees and shit, but was yours in medical science?
Nope.
I'm a high school dropout. I have a GED, and we were able to tell you while it was happening that not everybody needed to take it. I still maintain that that some people probably should. I know that's going to cause people like, what? If you're like 80 and they got you around a bunch of COVID people, maybe this is the way to go. Because at 80, your body's like, fuck it, I'm done.
We got so much shit for this too.
Yeah.
So we lost viewers. We got people yelling at us, and you had a response video. Ridiculous.
The truth of the matter is that I don't think it's bad for everybody. We know it's not actually. But for certain people, not only should they have not taken it, it killed them.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to talk about that. Specifically young men in their 20s, it was like deadly to them. And it's not a lot of number. It's not a huge number, Jack. It's not like thousands of people were dying from it, but enough that we should have been like, stop giving that to those guys.
Yeah.
They're not likely to get massively sick anyway, unless they're overweight and have 5 comorbidities. Leave them alone.
I feel seen right now, but yeah, look, that's true for probably a lot of medicine.
Yeah.
I don't need to take certain meds because I'm not the target demographic for it.
With the COVID, there seems to be something with it that interacts poorly with young male DNA. And they force this. What's really going to be interesting to see is what happens to the children. Like, because they were saying, hey, give it to babies 6 months old. What happens to those kids when they hit 20?
Probably some myocarditis, and that's going to be scary.
So he's trying to make it seem like it's better than it is. Hey, you guys, this is a question that needs asked. And he's right about the question that needs asked here. But he just pushes past the other questions that need to be asked. Because he's Chris Cuomo and can't admit. Jack, he told us at the beginning he wouldn't say sorry for all the shit he got wrong because he didn't do it with malice.
Yeah, well, good intentions is paving the road to hell and all that. And Chris is dumb and arrogant, so that doesn't surprise me.
You made everybody take it, and you shouldn't have. That is a legitimate grievance. I don't know the answer to that.
You don't know the answer to... All right. At the time, Jack, I believe it was less than 300 children, infants, had contracted COVID. And they were all very sick kids to begin with. And most of them still survived. Like wasn't it something like less than 100 kids died, the infants, toddlers, and younger?
Yeah, it was only like 300 and some total for a long time.
So
of like all under 18s.
And we knew this at the time that they started telling us to give this to elementary school kids and then infants. And you didn't say fuck all, Chris. Not a goddamn word. Not one part of your brain went, maybe we shouldn't inject this in kids who aren't even getting the virus.
Well, it was a pandemic of the unvaccinated, monkey.
Yeah. And we all deserve to die for not getting vaccines. Well, you guys did. I got my vaccine. I had to. Anyway.
I believe that with the
probably why I'm sick all the goddamn time.
Yeah, probably.
Later variants, we now know that this vaccine didn't do what it did with the earlier ones. And they
all right, there's another part. I'm so tired of this. This is what I was talking about earlier. The variants. If anything, the variants got lighter if we believe them that there are all these variants. Diseases don't change this fast.
Yeah, it accelerated. It was which is why I think it had a lot of bioengineering in it, but because it mutated very quickly. But that's aside the fact that mutation is pretty normal, because otherwise the virus will go extinct because it kills too many hosts.
Yeah. So in this case, let's say that I'm absolutely wrong and this virus has mutated massively from its original thing. The only thing we've seen from it is that it is less deadly. That's it. There's no new symptoms, Jack. There's no reason to believe that if your mRNA vaccine worked, that it wouldn't work on the slightly mutated one that kills it when it's already, making itself, a bitch disease.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia and COVID at the same time. Devil Pup, I'm glad you made it out, because this is another one of the things that they didn't talk about. There was a report out of a hospital where this nurse said these people are, getting pneumonia because that's what tended to cause the main problems with COVID. And instead of getting if you've ever had pneumonia, they don't just leave you laying in bed. And there's a reason for that. Because if you do, the shit just builds up in your lungs. They get you sitting up, or if you can, getting up walking. And they were just leaving people laying there. And there's a thought from some that led to a lot of the death, because they weren't doing the normal therapy they would do for somebody with breathing issues.
Yeah.
Should have changed the messaging, and they didn't. We know that. I'm here to have the conversation. You tell me what you're upset about. I'll deal with it. We'll talk about why I said what I said. I have no secrets. But what I want is not to slap Dave around in a debate, and not to be clever, and not to get applause, and not for you to want to take pictures with me at the end of the night. I want you to go home and say, sheesh, we got to know a lot more about this. And nobody is looking. That commission.
Why is nobody looking? Because people like you told them there was nothing to see here.
Yeah. And they had time to evacuate all the labs and burn everything that was of interest to everybody. Nothing here, mister. Move on.
This reminds me so much of Jake Tapper's book. Like now that it's out there, like, we really should be looking into this. Yeah. You mean the shit the rest of us were already talking about?
Well, they're privilegedly ignorant, I suppose.
I mean, for fuck's sake.
We have one in Congress, and then I'll shut up, is a sham, okay? Where did it come from? Tony Fauci. We know where it came from. It came from China. We know where it was. It was in a lab. We know who was working on it. It was China. We know who won't let us look in the lab. It's China. So that's your answer. But
that's your answer. It all came from China. Not Fauci. Hey, Chris, who paid for it?
Yeah, that's why they don't look beyond the surface of finally admitting that it was out of a lab in China. That's as deep as it's going, because otherwise you start seeing that taxpayer money from the United States funded that.
It absolutely did. And Rand Paul tried calling this out repeatedly. And remember what you did, Chris? Oh, Fauci slapped him around again. You remember that, Chris? You remember your buddy Tony? You even call him Tony. He said it a couple of times. Tony. That's just his buddy Tony. Your buddy Tony paid for the virus, you dick. And he did it in a dirty ass way because it was illegal.
You monster.
He gave it to an NGO who then gave the money to the COVID lab. Oh, you fucking asshole. Anyway.
What about all these other questions? They don't even care about them. The Trumpiest politicians that I talk to won't touch any of the things that we are talking about right now. That's what I want to change, and I'm happy to have the conversation.
All right, can I respond?
Okay, so this is as much as I've seen of this, other than the clips that are on Dave Smith's thing. So I don't know where the rest of this goes, Jack.
Okay.
But I wanted to cover his opening because it's just such nonsense. You deserve, or you should apologize for the shit you pulled. You were a complete dick about things. You were all in on it. You didn't look at it critically even a little bit. And now you're trying to retroactively be like, hey, you guys should really pay attention to this. Like, get fucked. Get fucked. Anyway.
There was a lot there, so I want to try to respond to as much
I
of
didn't
it
mean to
as I
flood the
can.
zone.
No.
Take it one by one.
We can go one by one. Okay, first of all, when I described the lockdowns that swept this nation in 2020 as totalitarian, just to be clear, I'm not being hyperbolic. When you're waking up every morning to watch your TV, to find out from your governor what you're allowed to do today, including, am I allowed to go to work? Am I allowed to have a funeral for my father? Am I allowed to see my family? Am I allowed to step outside without a cover on my face? There is one word and one word only for that, and that is totalitarianism.
He's right, but the way Chris gets away with, that's not authoritarian. Come on now, is because there are places that had it worse. Just looking at Australia. Sorry, Evolved, you guys really got fucked over in that one.
Oh my God, yeah.
We had like the police go to that one person's house because she let her kid go to a neighbor's house. But as far as I know, nobody got arrested for it. Nobody got taken to special camps and shit like that. And so the people who want to be like, hey, no, it wasn't authoritarian, they'll fall back on, I would call it a light authoritarianism.
It was milder than most, I would argue, because there were people that did get arrested. Remember that camper that they went out and got, or the dude on the kayak that was in New Jersey, and they'd shut the beach down, and he was out on his kayak or canoe or something, and they arrested him.
Oh yeah. I'm thinking of like the British one where they arrested. Was it the Brits who arrested the priest?
Oh yeah, there were a couple of those here too, but it was mostly like tickets. They would arrest them and cut them loose. But in the UK, I'm sure Australia had that too, because those two countries went really hardcore.
So again, it's not that it wasn't authoritarian. It was just a little lighter, because like not being able to go to work, they didn't wait for you to go to your work and then arrest you there. I mean, they did close down a couple of businesses. We saw that when they tried to open. But for the most part, they just told your boss they weren't allowed to open, so you couldn't go to work.
Yeah. I would call it a table read for authoritarianism.
Yes.
Just, you're sitting around, everybody's reading their scripts and even get a little practice going. It's like a screen test for being the next Hitler. And
yes, Einstein sucked at math. That is true. Go ahead. I'm sorry, bud.
No, it's really all I had. The places like China were the worst, most egregious offenders, and Australia and the UK were definitely in the top 5 of all the westernized countries. Because wow.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's not slightly hyperbolic. Now, You could argue that this totalitarianism was justified because of the virus, but it is certainly not hype, and it's not, but you could argue that, but it certainly is totalitarian. If we ever looked on paper, any of us at any point pre-COVID, and said, this government is instituting this policy, we would all recognize that as being totalitarian, as totalitarian as any society has ever existed. If that word doesn't apply to lockdowns, then it doesn't apply to anything. Now, I got to say,
again, the way lockdowns were done in America compared to where they were in other places, it wasn't as bad. I'm not disagreeing with Dave that it's totalitarian, that it's authoritarian. But again, because of some of the other shit that we saw, yeah, you can point to just say the word Australia and people are like, oh yeah, we didn't have it so bad.
Well, yeah. What gets me though is that you always end up with mission creep, and government is never satisfied with the level of power they have. So they always try and get a little more and see how far they can push it. And now they know that most people will be scared into submission.
Even if you don't have mission creep, you have officers who go out to enforce policies, not understanding what the policy is and way overreacting.
Oh yeah, we saw that a lot. People not wearing masks.
This can go bad.
Yeah,
but this is the kind of stuff that Chris will fall back on and be like, well, but what about that? No, it could be worse. Yeah, it could be, but that doesn't make it less authoritarian. It just means it was a softer form of the same shit, dickhead.
Listen, in this world, and I'll say this is true for our world, for the corporate media, for any time
I think Dave's making a mistake here. Because, well, yeah, the authoritarian. I'm sorry, I got a cough. Can you talk?
Yep. When he says our world, I assume he's talking about Mars. He looks like a Martian. And do you think Cuomo's brother, they share nipple rings?
Probably.
Ew.
They probably still share a nipple from mom.
Ew.
What I was going to say is that Dave is making a mistake here in that if I was him, as I did here, I would first pounce on that whole we couldn't have known shit. The authoritarian thing, honestly, was it bad? Yeah. Was that the most egregious thing? No. It was the justification for it that was the most egregious. If it was as bad as they said, and it was going to wipe out half of humanity, I could at least understand the lockdowns. But the numbers weren't there for that, even close to that.
Yeah.
Or, the fact that it had never been done before in the way they completely changed the way we deal with pandemics. But anyway.
Yeah.
Being in front of a camera with a lot of people watching and talking about things that matter. The currency that we trade in is the truth. That's the whole currency. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to be right about everything, but it has to mean that I really believe what I'm saying. And if I'm lying to the audience, then I've betrayed my most fundamental duty. Right. And I would...
No, don't give him that out. Don't give him that out, because I believe Chris believed it. I do. I think he thought he was special. And we saw that when he went to try selling his house when he supposedly had the disease. But you can't say that he knew he was lying at the time. And you're giving him an out with that. What the problem is that he repeated that shit uncritically. And anybody who did step forward, like, here's criticism, I'll be like, how dare you? You're just stupid, Trumpian, MAGA. You probably like Nazis.
Yeah, how dare you question the scientists? They know everything. The appeal to authority is unchallenged.
Do you even have a lab?
Yeah. Well, if you do, then you're probably a Chinese national building them in Nevada.
Also put as a subset of lying, if I'm pretending I know something that I don't know at all, and I'm taking a very strong opinion, and with 5 minutes of research, you could find out that this is completely false, that's another form of lying.
True.
Now, sir, you have completely...
Now, Jack, talk for just a second, would you?
Yeah. I think there was a lot of lying by omission, because the only times they would talk about opposing viewpoints was to deride them and belittle them. Like there were a couple of scientists that came out early on challenging Fauci on stuff, and they were just mocked into oblivion and then they were, thrown out of their schools and whatnot.
Even when it came out that Fauci was trying to destroy people's reputations for disagreeing with him, they were like, well, actually, he was just responding to another email. That he didn't really do it. They carried water for that asshole, even when he was found to be an asshole.
Yep.
They ran cover for him when he admitted to lying about masks, when he was still lying about masks. But not just lies by omission, Jack. There was a lot of purposefully willful ignorance.
Oh, absolutely.
Again, most of my criticism of the whole COVID and how we dealt with it came from fourth grade health class.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like this was the first pandemic on Earth either. I mean, we've had pandemics for centuries. There's protocols already in place that were very effective with less technology.
And none of these assholes in the news bothered with any of that. All they did was repeat.
Yeah, they were repeaters, not reporters.
And they would only repeat the given line. The ivermectin thing, I don't remember if I told you, Jack, but he's on ivermectin on this show right now. But it's different. You see, ivermectin, it does work on long COVID. I don't know how.
Oh, the same way unicorn dust works on goblin fever.
But look at how they covered ivermectin. Like, it's a horse dewormer. Well, there is a form of it that is a horse dewormer, but it had been approved for human use for decades at this point.
Yeah. Oh, but that didn't stop them from making that the pariah of medicine, did it?
Nope. And they've done the same thing. Look, I don't know all of the statistics and everything on how this, my ears are going in and out. It get really loud and then really it's bothering me. I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
Anyway, there's some evidence that ivermectin works against certain cancers. But since they've called it a horse dewormer and started talking about off-label use, which, by the way, doctors do all the fucking time.
Yeah.
In fact, their hormone therapies for children so that they can become the sex that they're not is off-label use.
Well, that's crazy.
But when it came to ivermectin, oh my God, no, against the narrative.
Never mind that your boner pills used to be blood pressure meds.
When I used to take Ozempic, that is a diabetic medicine that they realized helped people lose weight. The gabapentin I used to take, that wasn't made for spinal injuries. That was actually a psychotic, antipsychotic. Tons of drugs have been used off-label, and they realize that they're better off-label than they were on-label. Anyway.
Shirked all of your responsibility, and now you're pointing the finger at China. By the way, you were one of the people who demonized Donald Trump for calling it the China virus at the time. Okay?
Yeah.
So when it was...
But now suddenly, and again, this isn't something he needs to apologize for. No, because he didn't do it maliciously. He didn't call Trump an asshole and a xenophobe and a racist for saying China virus.
Well,
maliciously. No, he was just stating what he thought was facts.
And it's pronounced China.
China.
Convenient for
FDA that came from the fucking FDA. What came from the FDA?
For you had no problem smearing someone for pointing the finger at China. Your entire network also called everyone racist if we speculated that it came from the lab. I mean,
true. If you remember very early on, there's a report that can't come out from Fauci. And Fauci, he even gave I can't remember if it was at a press conference or just on a news channel, but he's talking about how he had proof that it wasn't man-made. In fact, you could look at it, and because of the way it's shaped, you could tell it wasn't man-made. Therefore, it couldn't have been made in a lab. Do you remember him saying that?
Yep.
It couldn't have been made in a lab. And so all these dickheads, all of them, were like, it couldn't be made in a lab. No, that's just racist. And then who was it? Was it the CIA, FBI? One of them came out and went, yeah, we're pretty sure this came from a lab. And then suddenly, like, you guys, of course it came from a lab. Of course. Of course.
Well, even then, there were people fighting with them saying that those are rogue agents. They're not official spokesmen, blah, blah, blah. Even though you could look at a map and see the Wuhan Institute of Virology a short distance away from that wet market.
The "you're not a horse" tweet came from the FDA. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, I did a podcast. It was either in April or May of 2020 when it already became obvious at that point that the lab was at least a very plausible, like we found out that 3 of the people at the lab went to the hospital with COVID-like symptoms. And there was a lab where they were doing gain of function research.
And not just that. It's not that we found out that they went to the hospital. We found out one of them died.
Yeah.
We found out one of these scientists was trying to get out the information that this was out there and that there was something weird about it. And the Chinese shut him the hell up.
Yeah, he's never been seen again.
Yep. There was tons of evidence of this stuff. And the mainstream was just like, no, Tony told me. And I believe Tony, he's great. See what I did there?
I see what you did there. Besmirching Tony the Tiger's good name.
Yeah, my bad, Tony.
Was like, man, this sure does look like it. I had to stop talking about it for 4 months after that because I would have lost my entire YouTube channel, that was
True.
it. It was very clear if you said anything about that for months, you'd be shut down. During that time, you guys at CNN were just mocking everybody who would dare say it was a lab leak. And then we were unable to defend ourselves, or those who did got their livelihoods ruined.
I don't know what was happening on YouTube.
I don't know what was happening on YouTube. You don't have to talk about that. He mentioned your network and how you guys treated it.
Yeah, and CNN absolutely talked about YouTubers spreading misinformation.
Yep.
Even though we were right more than they were, and I think that offended them on some moral level.
I want to be clear. I was not doing that. When Donald Trump started off, he was calling it the
China virus.
Cold. No, not initially. Initially, he said it was going to go away. It was a cold. I don't fault him for that. He was getting
It did go away.
No, he didn't say it was going to go away. He said he hoped it would go away. Because remember, at the original thing was locked down for 2 weeks, and the media gave him a bunch of shit because he said he wanted to have the country back open by Easter.
Yep.
And Easter that year, if I remember correctly, was April 2nd, something like that.
Right around then, yeah.
And the media was like, no, there's no way we can reopen. But there's a time before that where Trump tells us that this China virus is coming, and Nancy Pelosi's bitch ass went down to Chinatown in San Francisco.
That was so
Remember?
Funny. Yeah.
And Chris is glazing right past that part of the story. Because Trump had called it the China virus basically from the beginning. Trump is one of the first U.S. politicians to talk about this. He talked about it during his State of the Union, and he talked about how we needed to help China with this problem.
Yeah, because it was a big problem in Asia before it hit here, obviously. And it was starting to pop up pretty quickly here, but it had it widespread hit America when he started talking about it.
If I remember correctly, that year, the State of the Union was in February, and the first confirmed case in America was in March.
Yeah, that sounds right. But they had started having issues in Asia in like November.
Yeah.
But yeah, Nancy Pelosi was like, the Chinese are good people. They're not contagious, full of cooties. Well, then how did I get yellow fever? Huh? Yeah. Explain that one, Nancy.
Yeah, that's a part of it that they love to gloss over. And then when he shuts down the border with China, like, no, we're not taking anybody. What do they call it? Xenophobic.
Yep.
He's xenophobic.
They threw such a fit calling him a racist over that.
Yep. Now, in fairness to Chris, I don't know that every criticism we're saying about people who were on the Fauci train, he said himself. But he did work at a network where they all did say it, and he never once called it out.
Yeah.
Not once.
He played along with the narrative that was crafted, which it makes him culpable, whether he wants to admit it or not.
He could have had just an ounce of integrity. He can, because like they will get into the ivermectin thing later. And I only know that from watching Dave's video. He could have come out and went, hey, guys, it is a real therapy for people, especially, I mean, ivermectin was a game changer, especially in like the third world where you're more likely to get parasites and shit.
Yeah.
It was a game changer. You could have said that. You should, hey, that what they're calling it a horse, that's not right. That's fucked up. And you didn't do it. Not one goddamn time. He actually falls back on saying that the CNN doctor corrected all of them and said, no, this is real stuff. Which, by the way, he didn't do until after he went on Joe Rogan. And then he still went on CNN and let them get away with saying it.
Yep, I remember that very well.
Fucking dickbags. You guys know how much I hate the press. Do you see why we're covering this, even though it's 2 years old? It's such a great example of how fucking bad they are at their jobs.
Well, and how they are willing to manipulate reality to fit what they want people to think.
Yep.
That they are so willing to pervert the truth or outright ignore it so that they can look like they're somehow smarter than the rest of us. It's really gross.
It's very gross. And it's unfortunately typical. Yeah. According to Grok, Trump first called it the China virus in mid-March, a week before he said he hoped it would be done by Easter. See, he called it the China virus pretty much from the start.
China.
A lot of mixed information, and I know it. I don't blame him for that. He will be blamed for it, not by me. Then it gets bad. That's when he started calling it the China virus.
Wrong. As Frosty just pointed out, he called it that in mid-March. It doesn't get bad until like May. That's when he started calling it the China virus. And I don't know if Dave calls him out for this, but he's just factually incorrect here.
I said to him, in the beginning, you said China's been great to us. You can Google it. You can have that great producer you have. Look it up. China's been great. China's been working with us.
Shout out to you, Rob.
China's been great. Yeah, Rob, you're amazing. Then it gets bad for Trump. Trump then starts calling it the China virus. I have always pursued the lab leak. I have always talked about it. I have always said it mattered. You can check and find out.
Okay, let's.
I don't know enough of his talking points to deny what he just said.
We covered him a lot at the time, and I don't remember him doing anything other than shitting on the lab leak theory.
I'm perfectly willing to believe he didn't bring it up. Or if he brought it up, he said there's a small chance that it could have come from a virus or from a lab, just to cover his ass. But he was not out there banging the drum. Do you remember when, oh God, who's the guy from The Daily Show? Jon Stewart. When he's talking to Colbert and he's like, was it Colbert? No, he was talking to Trevor Noah. And he's like, it came from there's a Wuhan COVID, there's a lab right here with the name of it on the building. This is all shit that should have been easily figured out by anybody looking at this.
Yep.
The whole idea, they went so far to try to prove it came from that wet market that they ran an article that said they found dog blood, I think is what they said it was, that had traces of the COVID virus on the ground there. It had already been closed down for months. No, it was Colbert Monk. Okay, thank you. It had already been closed down for months, and they're like, they found this dog blood. See, it came from the wet market. This is months into the pandemic. Chris, I don't remember you talking about any of it. Because I'll be honest, I would have been like, God damn, I can't believe Chris got something right.
Oh, it'd be purely by accident.
Because we were making fun of him a lot during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Him and old Don and their little conversations. Remember there were people shipping the two of them.
Oh, God, it's so annoying.
Anyway.
They were so
Yes, they were.
Oh, but remember,
listen,
that's about preference.
Yeah, but
not
Chris,
truth.
do you not feel any responsibility for the fact that during this?
See, this is why they should let me argue with people instead of Dave. Dave, you should have called him out for his lie right here. He just lied. Trump was calling it the China virus. That's why Pelosi went to fucking Chinatown.
Yeah.
That's when you don't even need to know the dates. All you have to know is Pelosi went to Chinatown and why she went there. Anyway.
Time in the greatest crisis in modern American history that you're up there, and we'll get into the vaccine stuff in a second, but just sticking with the lockdown period, you are interviewing your brother, the lockdown governor, every day, giving him the most softball interviews. I remember at one point when the scandal with
they weren't news
hold on,
interviews.
you got a nice big rant. So
All right,
let me get in the middle of lockdown.
Rant for rant.
Sure. So in the middle of lockdowns, think about, this is more a comment on the network CNN than it is on you, but you said at one point a couple of years later, or over a year later, when your brother had his scandal. By the way, I respect you for always defending your brother. I would always defend my brother. I understand that. But you said on air on CNN, you said, listen, I haven't been allowed to cover this at all because it would be a conflict of interest for me to cover it. Yet during lockdowns, every single night, CNN allowed you to have the interview of your brother without any meaningful pushback at all. Listen, I understand this is your family I'm talking about, and I don't mean to make things personal in that way.
You kind of do, but I'm open to it.
Well, no, I mean, I don't.
No, he doesn't. He's just, that's the situation he's talking about, dickhead.
Yeah, it's not specifically you. It's the fact that somebody is allowed to interview the governor, who is their brother, without any pushback or repercussions. That's a little fishy.
Yeah. And what he means by it's not personal is if they had done it with Jake Tapper and Jake Tapper was interviewing his governor brother, it would still be shit. It'd still be something that shouldn't have happened.
Yeah, it's unprofessional, and it shows a conflict of interest, or at least the appearance of impropriety.
Yeah.
But I have no other choice.
Like, well, you could be accurate, which is
I'm being accurate.
You're not, because nobody thought.
What did I say that was inaccurate?
Nobody thought the interviews I was doing with Andrew were news interviews.
Well, no one.
So maybe the audience, because you're on a news channel.
It was on a news channel, on a news show. Sure, it's punditry, but it's a news show, and you guys were talking about the news that was going on. I don't know why anybody would have thought that it was news.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
And not only that, the conversations made other news. It was being covered by other news outlets that he was interviewing his brother.
Yeah, because the governor was talking to a journalist. That's news, literally.
Nobody thought it was news. And Chris, maybe you didn't. Okay, let's be fair, right? Maybe Chris is like, nobody will think this is news. This is just me shooting the shit with my brother. That's fine, but it's retarded. It's not nobody thought it was news. You didn't think it was news.
Yeah.
And in fairness, it wasn't news, but it was presented as it. Anyway.
I know thinks anything on CNN is news.
Okay.
But
that's fine.
No, when it's on the cable news network, the presumption is that this is news.
Hold on. How many people in this room thought that when I was interviewing my brother, it was going to be a hardball interview, and that's why you were watching? Because this is what Chris Cuomo is known for.
Yeah.
Well, Chris Cuomo's not known for hardball interviews.
I don't know. Don Lemon's balls were. Yeah, you're not wrong.
His thing is, hey, who thought this was gonna? You're asking a crowd full of people who clearly don't like CNN. So ask them if they thought that your interview with Joe Biden or anybody in the Obama administration would have been a hardball interview, and you'll get the same response. The fact that you're not known for hardball interviews is the issue there, Chris.
But that's the whole point.
Come on.
But that's the point.
But he was other places giving interviews all day long. He was coming on at that time with me because people were enjoying the dynamic of getting some sense of familiarity and comfort in an uncomfortable time.
Fuck off.
With the governor of New York.
Yeah, two rich elitists having a banter that you're not allowed to have because nobody's allowed to come over to your house because there's limits on how many people can be in each residence. Fuck you elitist scumbag.
But listen to how he stated it. People were watching because they enjoyed the banter. And okay, that's not why you set up the first interview, because the people couldn't have enjoyed that banter before it happened. To what he's doing here is using retroact, because in fairness to Chris, there were a ton of people who enjoyed those interviews. Why? I don't fucking know. But you didn't know they were going to enjoy those interviews until after you had already started doing them.
Yeah.
So you can't use that as an excuse for why you did it.
That's what the draw was. He was getting asked questions all over the place. What I said I couldn't cover wasn't him and COVID, it was him and anything. No. It wasn't going to be a serious news interview. And what I was talking about specifically was not Andrew and COVID. It was his allegations.
No, I know.
Who wants to hear me talk about my brother's allegations and think I'm being
No, it's a clear conflict of interest. That's as was you interviewing him about lockdown.
Well, it's not like that's the only place he was on during
here's
COVID.
One person in cable news.
So you were giving him campaign boosters. Yes, with what Chris just told us, he was violating campaign finance laws.
Yep. Hate fact.
Who did some real journalism, okay? Tucker Carlson he got Governor Murphy from New Jersey on his show. Yeah. And he asked him one simple question that was never asked of any of the other lockdown governors. And you know what the question was? He had just shut down, it was either a church or a synagogue, I can't remember. And he goes, oh, wait a minute. So you just shut down this temple and arrested people for worshiping. Where do you get the authority to do that? Because I've read the First Amendment and it's pretty clear that you have the freedom of religion. And so where do you get the authority to shut that down? And you know what Governor Murphy said? He said, well, I'm not thinking about the Constitution. That's above my pay grade.
That is true. That is what that asshole said.
Yeah, that's the most un-American thing you probably could have said at that time.
Then why didn't your network have someone interview him that would do hardball questions? Because he wouldn't have come on.
Yeah.
I get your point, Frosted, but yeah, the reason they let this happen is because they got a coup. They got Governor Cuomo on almost nightly when everybody's panicking about this pandemic that's destroying the country, and they got him on night after night after night. And it wouldn't have happened if his brother wasn't his brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Buddy.
If they wanted to make it look like it was not an interview and it was something casual, why didn't they go to one of the sets where they had a sofa and they could sit in casual wear and then just be like, we're going to do a banter segment. Instead, they're both on the regular set wearing suits, talking like you would in any interview, except it was a pussy interview.
Yeah, Dangerous. I had a feeling that this episode might upset you a little bit, my friend.
Yeah, the Australians have a right to be very upset about the topic.
Oh, no, with him.
The journalism,
being a journalism student and all, journalism degree. Listening to Chris here just flout common sense journalism. This isn't shit even you should have to be taught. But yeah. Anyway,
I'm sorry. So Alex Jones is a better journalist than this. Come on.
Sure.
Just to make this clear, okay?
Answer.
Yeah, it sure is. But you know what? Your brother and none of the rest had a better one. They just never got asked that question. So here's
it has nothing to do with the First Amendment.
Yeah, of course it does. Chris.
What are you locking down a church and arresting people for going has nothing to do with the First Amendment?
I'm sorry. Is it freedom of religion under the First Amendment?
Yeah.
A freedom of association and assembly. Freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Yeah. The right to redress grievances with the government by going like, "Fuck you, I'm going to church."
Yeah. This is Chris Cuomo, who once asked, "Where does it say that protest has to be peaceful?" It's in that First Amendment you've apparently never read.
Yeah. Chris Cuomo would have been an apologist for FDR's internment camps back in the day.
Yep. All right.
Here's the bottom line. There's no clause in the Constitution or the Bill of Rights that says, unless there's a virus that we don't know that much about, and then this all goes away. The point,
which, by the way, is you could sit there and go, well, maybe they couldn't have thought of it. Remember, the founders had to deal with smallpox.
Yeah, cholera outbreaks were very common.
Yes.
So was typhus. I mean, they had diseases that we can cure now, and they didn't have any way of fixing that. So yeah, they knew what they were talking about. Death was a pretty common thing back in the day.
This isn't even like the Second Amendment argument where they're like, they didn't know what kind of guns we'd have now. No, they were literally dealing with pandemics in their own time.
Yeah, New York used to get quarantined all the time. The city of New York would get quarantined because of cholera outbreaks. They just seal off the city and be like, all right, we're going to ride it out. They did that with every major city. Just look up the history of yellow fever, smallpox, typhus, cholera. It's all there.
I mentioned earlier Matt Walsh's videos. Check out his one on the real history of the American Indian. He talks about the smallpox problems with soldiers and how Washington did something which is considered one of the first immunizations is they would introduce smallpox to people.
Yeah.
Because if you caught it just in the air, it was horribly deadly, like 50% death rate. But if you got it like on your skin and it got in, for some reason, it was much more mild. And so they purposefully infected soldiers with it.
Yeah, that's what Walter Reed is famous for fighting yellow fever. That some of the researchers would infect themselves with it to show that, you know, how you could overcome it and stuff like that. That it was a pretty common tactic back in the day. This is not new stuff. Again, we've fought with pandemics for centuries, all of human history. I mean, the plagues, come on, the Black Death, really? Like, it's like Chris Cuomo never took a history course.
Is that it was completely criminal for all of these governments to lock down. They had no authority to derive the right to lock down a state from. And yet you
instead, like in my state, what they did is they gave emergency powers. This is why I know a lot of people like some of the things Trump's done, but I still don't like them because they're done under emergency powers. And that is a dangerously slippery slope.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's easily abused.
Yep.
When the emergency has passed, I shall relinquish my powers. It's a Star Trek line or Star Wars line, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of anyone at CNN thinking, hey, if we have Andrew Cuomo on here every single night, maybe someone should ask him that question. They went, no, give him a cushy interview with his brother. Like, you don't find that incredibly corrupt?
No, and here's why.
Because it was me.
Yeah. I'm incapable of being corrupt, except when I am.
Is that the only place that the governor of New York was?
It doesn't matter if he was anywhere else. It matters what happened on your show and on your network.
Yeah, it's the optics of it. You're supposed to be a journalist or at least a commentator, and you have your brother on there, and you're giving. I don't understand how he's not accepting this, other than willful ignorance or lies.
Well, and maybe Dave will point this out to my, probably not. I like Dave well enough. We disagree on a bunch of shit, but he's a decent debater. But what Chris isn't understanding is that even if we take him at his word, right, that, hey, Andrew was getting asked a bunch of really hard shit elsewhere, bring him onto your show. And having a softball interview, whether it's, hey, we were just talking about the weather that day, so nobody thought it was news. You're still helping his image. You're still doing campaigning for him. You piece of shit. Because that's, if you're going to say that it wasn't news, then it's campaigning. That's what you did. And it was done with CNN resources, a news network.
Seems like there's rules about stuff like that.
Is that the only access to media that they had to him? So your criticism really goes to all media, but really what it is an extension that you didn't like the lockdowns. It's not about whether there was legal authority for them. That's why there's been no lawsuit on the lockdowns that has proceeded in one. Because
Well, actually, that's because courts have interpreted the Emergency Powers Acts as okay, even though they're really not.
Yeah, it was to cover your ass by the government.
Yeah, this is one of those things that like they did with Trump's lawsuits against the election. It's like, oh, there were all of these cases and they didn't win any of them. Well, many of them were thrown out unjustly. We don't actually have any, say in this. You do. You're just choosing not to.
It wasn't about the authority of the government to use emergency measures in public safety situations. It's about whether they should have. And I'm totally fine with that. And you saw them all.
No. It is about whether they have their power, because that's about that comes down to whether they should have or not. In a different country, Jack, like Australia. I don't know all of your laws, but for argument's sake, let's say that under your constitution, the government has the right to take away all of your rights under certain issues, certain emergencies. And then they take away those rights because there's an emergency. You might not like it, but it is the right thing to do. It is within their legal authority to do so. What Dave's trying to point out is it wasn't in their legal authority to do so. They had no right to do it. That's what makes it so wrong.
Yeah, there's nothing saying that they could do that, because we have very specific wording in the Constitution about what the government can and can't do.
Yep. Monkey, it is lack of constitution, isn't it? It depends on where you're talking about.
Over the world,
because most countries have a constitution. It's just a lot of them have like free speech is my favorite one for this. Like, people around the world, no, we have free speech too. It's like, yeah, but your constitution says they can take it away from you.
Yeah,
it's literally written in.
Yeah, you have a type of free speech, but it's not an actual like amendment. It's a series of laws.
They don't even have that, because it's in there. I think it's Canada's the one that I'm talking about, where it says they have the right to. It's not free speech; it's free expression.
Yeah,
but it specifically says they can take it away. So therefore, it's not a right. It's a privilege at that point.
Yeah, that's unless it says specifically the government is not capable of doing this, like ours does. Like the government shall not. Then they're gonna find a way to fuck you over every time.
Many more severe than they were in the United States, and for longer. But is it worth reviewing? Yes. What I'm saying is that my criticism would be that your interest is about how it generates attention. And that's fine, but it won't fix. I'm telling you right now, if God forbid something happened again, we would be lost about how to do it differently. And you'd have a...
No, we wouldn't, because we could just go back to the way we used to do it.
No, that doesn't give them lots of power. We're not going to do that.
Yeah, they'd be lost on how to do it. No, because one, we have examples from the 2020 pandemic of places like Sweden that didn't lock down at all. Because he loves pointing to all these other countries, and he's not wrong, is that many places were worse than here. But it's not like everybody followed the same guidelines. It's not like everybody did things exactly the same. But even more importantly, he already brought up 1919. We could go look at how they dealt with that. We could go further back and look at how they dealt with smallpox and cholera. There's plenty of places to look to see how we could do this better.
Yeah, it's crazy how we used to, write stuff down so we could go back and reference it later, or generations later, people be like, how did they deal with this? Let's look at the paperwork. Jesus. Seriously, it's like Chris just thinks this stuff just happened. This is the first time ever anything like this has ever happened. No, this is not new stuff. It's just been a long time, because we have better sanitation. We have better health, medical knowledge, everything that goes wrong with the better medicines. So a lot of this stuff is just kind of historically driven now. We had to adapt to the modern version of it, but they chose to go a more authoritarian route than an actual medical route.
Frosted looked it up, and according to Grok, at least, Andrew did between 3 and 5 total adversarial interviews.
Wow.
My brother was on all these other places. Sure he was. Sure he was.
Yeah, they were all giving him handies. Jeez.
Yeah, that's the other part that Chris doesn't address here is that Andrew especially was seen as some kind of god. You know, like, he's doing the greatest stuff here. Look at how he's handling New York. He's made it better for everyone.
Except those old people that he killed.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of people going, hey, why are all those people dead when you shove the sick COVID folks into the old folks' homes? Which, by the way, it would have made more sense to shove those people into elementary schools than it did into old folks' homes.
Yeah, well, I mean, they were looking to shove a bunch of old people out of the system.
Yep.
Is really what was going on.
It's hard. Okay, this is where we get into conspiracy. So YouTube, this is just my mind wandering. If you look at the 2016 election, after Trump wins, you have a major push to get old people to stop voting. And then right before the 2020 election, bunch of old people are killed off in some pretty predictable ways.
Yeah, and they're like, oopsie poopsie, it was totally the sniffles.
I didn't know. Whoopsie.
Pocket of people, 25, 35%, who say, I'm not going to do it. And you would lose that case again.
You know, it's really wild, Chris, for you to...
You would lose that case again, but that doesn't mean you should lose that case again. I do, look, you can point to court precedent, you know, and be like, this is how things will turn out, but it doesn't mean that that's the right way for them to turn out. You know what I mean? Like, how many times did slavery go before the court before it's finally shut down? How many times did civil rights go before the court before they finally get it right? The pointing to the courts often is used as a form of appealing to authority to try to get around the argument of whether something should happen or whether it is going to happen. Cuomo's absolutely right. If this goes before the courts, they're going to do the same shit. They're going to be like, well, it says emergency power here, so emergency power it is. But they'll never dig into whether or not they have the right to have that emergency power. Those are two different questions. Two different questions.
Psychoanalyze me and say my interest here is in generating attention. You're the guy who, when at CNN, said everything to defend the vaccine when you were being sponsored by Big Pharma. And all of a sudden now that you're here on PBB show, you'll say the truth. Pharma. No, but
I haven't watched CNN in quite a while live on their service, so somebody's going to have to help me here. But it has been my experience on television that I have seen that pharmacy or pharmaceutical ads are heavily prevalent. Like half of the ads I see are for some drug or another. I was not sponsored by yeah, you were, dickhead.
I'm not sponsored by Big Pharma.
No.
I'm not against the vaccine.
Hold on. You're not even listening to what I'm saying. You're attacking my motive, saying all I care about is generating interest. Meanwhile, when those CNN checks were coming in, you said nothing that would have put them in jeopardy. But now that you're here, you're starting to tell a little bit of the truth.
So hold on. No. It's not. That's not true. I don't have a changed opinion about the vaccine.
Chris, go look at the montages of what you were saying then to what you're saying now. And you don't have a changed opinion.
Absolutely not. And when Pat put out this clip, that Pat would, look, we can talk about it. I'm not offended by the questions or the suggestion. Here's why. Pat said that I wouldn't take it again if I could do it over again. It's not what I said. If they wanted me to take a booster right now, my doctors say it's not working for me. I have as much natural immunity as I'm going to get. I got as much hybrid immunity as I can get. You make the same decisions. They don't have them.
I'm confused about how boosters work. Because we were told you need the booster because the other one will wear off. How can you? Is there a limit where eventually you get it so that it just stays at the high level?
No, it always goes away, Monkey. Always another booster.
I don't know if I've said it yet in this show. I know I've called him a moron, which he is, but he's really fucking stupid. Like exceptionally fucking stupid.
Mandates the same way, except with kids in school protocols, which again, I think should be on the table to discuss, because we are an outlier when it comes to our kids in schools and the vaccine. The vaccine, let's talk about it. What is your beef about the vaccine? Do you believe it didn't work?
No, it didn't. It certainly didn't work at all in the way it was sold.
When we spoke and I asked you about the vaccine to qualify this and clarify it, I said, if 2026, the second COVID comes in and they mandate taking vaccines, would you take it? You said no.
I thought we're talking about like if they need me to take another one for this virus.
No, I specifically.
I just didn't understand that very specific question you asked.
Yeah, this guy looks familiar. Who's he?
I don't know his name. I've seen him many
before.
times, but
Yeah,
I don't know his name.
Specifically asked if another COVID comes out and they force us to take vaccines, knowing what you now know now, would you take it again? You said no. Just to qualify, that's what
I thought we were
that's what you
talking
said.
about if it's this virus. Well, why would I lie?
Okay.
Because you caught lying. And
Excuse me.
typically when people get caught lying, they tend to lie to justify the lie. That's why.
Yeah, Andy's a scumbag on top of that. So
That is true. His name is Patrick Bet David.
I've seen him do other interview stuff. I didn't know his name. Thank you, whoever said that.
What I lie
So,
about?
let me just show something. Guy, I want to show something because you said a couple things here. For me, you have to know I'm America first, period. I'm about us figuring out a way to make this the greatest country in the world and keep it the greatest country in the world. That's what my priority is, period. My kids are here. I have 4 kids here. We all have kids. We're all family folks. We want to make sure this place is a safe place and the greatest country in the world. Now, you said something. I got the question for you. You said they tried to make Fauci the boogeyman.
Yes.
Right. Brother, when 9/11 happened, the one thing that they did during 9/11, they made somebody else the enemy. We all came together.
Yes.
During COVID, they never made China the enemy. Pelosi went to Chinatown.
Thank you. Yes.
By the way, I have bed sheets that match his jacket.
It's not bad sheets, actually.
They're really comfortable.
Blaming how racist it was for what Trump did.
Yes.
And instead of making China the enemy, we made Trump the enemy. And America became divided. And that's why we have the shit show that we have today. So,
And yes, Chris, you were part of that. I remember specifically that you were part of that.
when you're saying like now we want to make Fauci the enemy,
Right.
I have a problem with that because look how wild.
Wait, those
it
are two
is.
different things. Explain it to me,
But
Pat.
it's not two different things.
How?
Because, well, you just said,
Yeah.
you said, instead of making China the boogeyman, we're
Right.
making Fauci the boogeyman.
Yes.
Yes. In 2020 March, instead of making China the boogeyman, we made Trump the boogeyman. That's what you did. CNN did that.
No, that's not what I.
How is lightning not hitting him right now?
I don't know. I'm expecting his pants to burst into flames because, liar, liar, pants on fire.
So CNN didn't make Trump the boogeyman.
Trump has always been the boogeyman for most of the media.
Right, but
It wasn't about COVID.
Well-
I'm just telling you, it wasn't about
Well,
COVID.
he certainly
actually
was-
got
Well, okay. Two things can be true at once. Yes, Trump has always been the boogeyman for the media, and they made him the boogeyman for COVID. Those two things are not mutually exclusive.
They are to Chris because he's a disingenuous shitbag.
kind of a
Boogeyman.
past.
Yes, he was the boogeyman
Yeah,
far before COVID.
Sure,
when
way
when you guys were repeating mindlessly every day that there was some giant conspiracy with Trump and Russia, and leading the entire country to believe that our election had been stolen by a hostile foreign power, and that Vladimir Putin had, and once again, like we won't get out of you tonight, not one apology from anyone at CNN when it turns out there was zero evidence that that was true. And you could say we just guessed right, but all of us who were paying attention knew from the very beginning that this was totally made up. And of all the things you could say about,
but see, this is what they have to do. Chris Cuomo, his best line is, "You guys just guessed right," because the other option there is that Chris is a moron who should have known,
or he's part of the cover-up.
Yeah,
you know, part of the gears that created the conspiracy. And arguably, I'm not opposed to believing that, honestly.
I think that Chris is just a mouthpiece. That's all he's ever been.
Yeah, he's not smart enough to be a mastermind or anything.
Let's be real about what news anchors are. These are not people who are going out there collecting the news. They're the people reading the news. They're literally the guy from Anchorman. What's his name? Ron Burgundy.
Yeah, they're repeaters. They just read what's on the prompter.
Fuck you, San Diego.
Yeah,
that's who these guys are.
Stay classy. Real quick, thank you, Frosted Glass. I'm addicted to a TCG called Star Wars Unlimited, where the cards are all based on characters or events from the franchise. You know, one of the most overpowered cards of the last set was Emergency Powers.
Yep.
Yeah, that sounds right. Which, by the way, I have the starter set for Hoth for that I'm going to do an unboxing on eventually.
Frosty says, "I don't know this Dave Smith guy, but judging by this video, he seems pretty good." Dave is a famous Twitter libertarian, and that's where me and him tend to diverge, because he goes into nonsense libertarianism. He doesn't believe that, like, I should really be cracking down like they do, or as a good libertarian, he believes in abortion because apparently killing kids is cool. He's not the worst, but there's many times he makes a fool of himself because of his more libertarian ideas.
Donald Trump.
How could you have known right from the very beginning that it was totally made up?
Because it was the most absurd claim ever. That when the CIA comes out and says Vladimir Putin has overthrown our elections and installed Donald Trump in there, and presents zero evidence to back it up.
That's not the investigation. That's not the allegation.
Well, no, but it was what people on your former network said daily.
Listen,
it was what people.
Yeah, this is one of the places where Dave is screwing up, because you do need to be very specific. And the left was careful, whether they meant to be or not, of not saying Putin installed Trump. They would say things like Putin wanted Trump to win, or he's a Putin puppet, but they wouldn't say necessarily that he stole the election for him. They said they interfered with the election.
Well, the part that made it so obviously unbelievable was the whole P-tape thing.
Yeah.
You took it too far. If you're going to create a conspiracy, it has to be mostly believable. Well, you can't cross the line into absurdity.
There's a much better reason to think that it was fake. This was paid for by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. Written by a foreign spy, a spy for the British, who used Russian intelligence.
Yeah. Known unreliable Russian intelligence.
And instead of questioning any of that, going, wait a minute, they just went, yes, he totally was in a hotel and women peed on the bed. The pee on the bed, you're right. That is such a red flag. Like, why would that be included? I mean, if you're trying to downplay Trump and make him out to be something like, okay, the worst case scenario, he's got a weird fetish. All right. Considering this was coming from Hillary Clinton's campaign, you might want to be, quiet about weird sexual picadillos.
Right. right? But they had to take it just a little too far.
Yep.
They can't help themselves. The left is notorious for this shit. They always take it just a little past the line.
Yeah, there was no reason to believe it. And even if you could, Putin wanted him installed. There was literally zero proof that there was any working together. And when it does finally come out, yeah, you're right, Chris. We did have to guess about some of the things, but isn't it weird how we were able to guess so reliably and you couldn't tell the truth reliably?
Yeah, weird how pretty much nailed it and won most of the time.
Yeah.
But hey, what do we know?
This is from a guy who just said Trump is always the media's boogeyman.
Yeah.
And it didn't make you even a little bit skeptical? Because he was the boogeyman in 2015 as soon as he announced. Don't act like that shit started when he won the election.
Right.
Not only
MSNBC
have I never said that Russia
pretend...
put in Trump,
so
I've never had anyone
Chris,
on my show who
Chris,
said that.
Let's just be honest here for a second.
Go ahead.
Are you
Try
going to
it.
genuinely tell me that CNN and MSNBC did not every day for 3 years give the impression that Donald Trump was involved in a conspiracy with the Russians?
They absolutely covered the investigation into Donald
That's not what he asked you. Answer the question, you pussy.
Trump from a special prosecutor every day. MSNBC did it differently, I would argue, than CNN.
Why was that special prosecutor appointed?
Why was it appointed? Because the Attorney General thought he should be.
Here's why.
He's such a cunt.
He's really good at being unable to take any responsibility or accountability. Are we sure he's not a woman?
He might be. P-Dog says they always guessed one way. True. Yeah.
And he admitted it himself on 60 Minutes. If any of you guys want to go back and listen to it, Andrew McCabe, the number 3 guy at the Justice Department, said after Donald Trump fired Comey, these are his words, not mine. After he fired Comey, they decided to try to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove him on the grounds that he was unstable. And they realized they couldn't get enough of his cabinet to do it, so they settled on a special prosecutor. That's why. Not a single one of them thought he was a Russian spy. Let me tell you something. Carter Page, the one guy who got in trouble from the FBI, as I'm sure you guys both know. Why did he get in trouble? Because he lied to the FISA court. Because the CIA told the FBI that Carter Page was their guy. They knew he wasn't a Russian spy. The whole thing was complete nonsense just to frame Donald Trump so he couldn't get his agenda through. And CNN ran with it every single day.
But see, here's where you're going to let Cuomo off, is because a lot of what you're talking about is stuff we knew after this all started. And Cuomo's point here is, how could you know that in advance? It's because of stupid things like peeing on the bed. That's why.
It's because once you pull on the thread, things start to unravel very quickly. You find a couple weird things, idiosyncrasies, and eventually you find inconsistencies, and then it gets stupid.
You didn't have to do all that much digging either, because it's not like they were hiding what report this all came from.
Yeah,
it's the Steele dossier. Well, who's Steele? Oh, it's this British spy. Who paid for it? He works for Fusion GPS whatever it was. And they were hired by the Democrats to get this. Oh, wait a minute. I mean, maybe we should start asking questions now.
Nah. Questions? What are you, on YouTube or something?
Thank you, Tyrai. Off topic, my big brother watches Tucker Carlson. Excuse me. My big brother watches Tucker Carlson and believes the Jews are the big bad, while not seeing a problem with China, CCP, or Islam. That is Tucker's go-to right now. I would, you know what? Have your brother tune in sometime, and we'll talk about the Jews.
Oh boy, we're not going to be popular for that one.
You can sit there and think that the Jews are controlling everything, but tell me why the Islamic population is exploding.
Yeah, and why they're moving in large groups to create their own cities in places like Texas.
Yeah.
And why they're flaunting the laws in Europe, all over Europe.
Well,
it keeps happening.
In one of the funniest twists is the Jew haters will tell you the Jews are making it happen.
Yeah,
the Jews are pushing the Islamic immigration.
Yeah, because Islam and the Jews are notorious for working together. What?
Yeah, what the Jews really want is Islam taking over America, their sugar daddy.
Yeah, the one country that's constantly supporting them.
Yep.
That makes total sense. No, it's easy to pick a group and blame them for all your problems. But the world doesn't work that way. It is way more nuanced. There's way more going on. And just to pick a group that historically is already blamed for stuff. I mean, what's next? We're going to blame the gypsies? Come on.
Russia didn't interfere the last time. It wasn't made up, and it was to it was the own intelligence folks that say they are up to it again, helping them. Chris Cuomo. Yeah, it sounds like him. Don't worry, man. He never said that. Come on, man. They were just covering what the special prosecutor was doing before the special prosecutor was even appointed.
Yeah, well, if anything, the Russians would have liked Hillary because she was consistent. She was somebody they were already familiar with. It'd been easier to deal with her. And Obama was really, really. Remember that whole thing with Obama saying after the election, I'll have a little more room to work. Well, Hillary Clinton was his Secretary of State. They already knew what she believed and what she wanted and expected. Trump's a wild card, even on the best of days.
When it comes down to it, the Russians, we do know that they were doing stuff, Jack. It wasn't very successful, but
yeah,
it wasn't like they only did Trump propaganda. That's all that gets talked about.
Yeah,
but they were just trying to sow division.
Yeah, because us in chaos, having the United States in chaos leads to better results for them.
Yep.
Was this show sponsored by Fiji Water?
It might have been.
It's in every frame with that guy.
The FISA court got warrants based on news reports, Chris. They also got warrants based on absolute lies. So
yeah. Well, remember, the FBI and CIA were planting news articles that they would leak information so that the reporters would publish it, and then they could use that published article to go get the FISA warrants.
Yep. It's absolutely what they did.
It's a total violation of how you're supposed to get warrants.
And you know what? This is a bigger point, because if the news wants to cover, well, this is what Mueller's doing. Fine. But when it comes out that, like the situation you were just talking about, what Jack just described absolutely happened.
Yeah.
They planted articles and then used those articles to get the FISA warrants to secretly spy on Americans.
Because FISA warrants were basically rubber stamps, and they just had to point to some outside source saying this is where we got it from, even though they're the source for the report.
But much like the IRS scandal, it's not a scandal if the press doesn't report on it real big. Go ahead and hide behind we didn't know any better. Once you did know better, you should have been so pissed off that it was wall-to-wall cut. We should have got sick of how much coverage there was.
Yep.
And instead, not a peep. Not a fucking peep. You guys were already on to January 6th by then.
Oh, convenient.
What is a FISA warrant? No, FISA warrant. The federal, it's a secret court that allows the government to spy on Americans. It's supposed to, this is part of, you remember Chris Cuomo telling us how great the 9/11 thing worked out? This is part of it. There's a secret court where they can go in and ask for the ability to spy on Americans because it's not legal to do otherwise.
Yeah.
It was supposed to make sure it was never misused. And they not only misused it, they misused it against a fucking president.
Yeah, it's some secret star chamber bullshit that should not exist in a free society.
Yeah. Good morning. Hope everybody's well. I've seen so many friends in here. I saw Pat was in here and P-Dog. Hope you guys are well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Questioning. Unquestioning about the story itself.
I don't see it the same way. I don't think it was about keeping Donald Trump from having an agenda. I do think there is a problem with prosecuting political opponents. And I do think that both of the parties engage in it. And I think
Here's the difference. Because yes, Trump has prosecuted some people. There's a lot of folks mad on the right now because more people haven't been prosecuted, because Trump so far has the prosecutions we've seen have been for actual crimes that are on tape, and they still get thrown out even though it's on tape. Trump got prosecuted for shit that didn't happen, or that they had to, is embellish the right word?
Fabricate is what I would
Fabricate.
go with.
Things like the overestimation of his the worth of his properties. It was nonsense. But anyway. And then when you're like, well, they did that to Letitia James. Well, turnabout's fair play, bitch.
Yeah, and she actually did that.
She actually did it. So again, in the Trump situation, like, Mar-a-Lago's only worth $18 million. It was worth more than that when he fucking bought it.
Yeah. And now it's attached to a two-time president's name.
Yeah.
The value exponentially skyrocketed.
Novel charges. Yep, that's the term for it. It's novel charges, and novel means it's a way it hasn't been used before.
Yeah, that novel's in the fiction section too.
But you see what Chris does here? Like, both sides do political prosecution. True. But there is still a difference, you dickhead, and that's the problem, is that you don't highlight those differences.
Why would you want to do that?
I think it's another signal that the party system has to die. I agree with that. There is no world in which you could be skeptical to the extent that they're sharing information with you. But when you have a special prosecutor, right, or special counsel, whatever you want to call it, and they are doing an investigation, you're going to cover it. And you're going to look at the information.
Well, you can cover it and still call it bullshit. I remember during Clinton, and a lot of the stuff thrown at Clinton wasn't provable. And that's what they said on the news at night. They didn't be like, hey, Clinton's a shitbag because the special prosecutor's looking into XYZ. Y'all defended him. Even up to Monica Lewinsky, which in that case, he was just outright wrong. He quite clearly lied under oath.
Well, Monkey, it depends on the definition of is.
It depends what your definition of is. And you know, the most fucked up part of that is he's actually right in what he's saying, in that it's not applicable to what he was saying in the time. But the definition of is can have major meaning.
Yeah, he was just being a slimy lawyer at that point.
He was. Anyway.
Information that they're saying coming out. And of course, there's always copious leaks because there are politicians involved. And you're going to do it. Fox did it also. And they started doing it less and less as they believed that it wasn't working for their audience.
And your network had Fat Man Molester, what's his name? Brian, calling Fox out for not going along with the approved narrative. That's a real thing CNN does. Anytime Fox, look at what they're covering while the entirety of the media is covering this one thing. Look what they're talking about.
Well, what got me was even Fox was playing ball for the most part.
Yep.
They had a little bit more pushback, and that was it.
And then when it was clear that this was going to go the wrong way, they dropped it and got on the right side of the world on that one. This is why we tell you guys not to trust Fox either.
Yeah.
Because, they might have eventually got there, but it took them a while. They were still doing the same shit. You know why? Because nobody in power actually likes Donald Trump, because it upsets the power balance that a guy with no political experience got elected president 3 times. He only got the job twice, Jack, but he won 3 times.
Well, I mean,
we're allowed to question elections again. It's okay.
For now. They'll retroactively punish us for it in
right
6 months or so. But they don't like the fact that somebody they didn't approve got elected. They see themselves as the gatekeepers, the elites, the sophisticated people.
I am sorry to do this, but I do need to wrap up the show because I got to get a little bit more sleep before the baby wakes up. Yeah,
Sleep.
to lay down. But I wanted to cover this because it shows so well the kind of people you're dealing with when you're dealing with the news. I threw the link in the chat if you guys want to watch the full thing. At the very least, go over and watch Dave Smith's video where he's covering this, and he shows the 2 times that Andrew just gets made a complete fool of. It's important to understand how these people think and how they manipulate you. I mean, there's several examples of Chris trying his manipulative shit on Dave. They're like, I think you're a funny guy. I really think you're a funny guy. Our news media is a huge problem. It's a major problem. The lies that we're told on a constant basis, whether it's coming from the government or big tech or whatever liar you think exists out there, I promise you the bad stuff is coming from our media because they're mostly shills.
Yeah.
Part of it is their own partisan hackery, and part of it is I got paid to say this. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the more they're exposed, the better it is for all of us. What Andrew meant when he said if there's another pandemic comes down, we won't know what to do. There's a little bit of truth on that, but it's only because we were so lied to in the last one.
Yeah, and look, we have to learn from experience. And yes, every situation is unique, but you have some examples to look at and say what worked in the past. And unfortunately, dropping the hammer on everybody because everything's a nail now is not the way to do it. But that's the lesson they're going to take away is we just need to strip everyone of their civil liberties because, well, it worked for us last time.
Yeah.
They don't care about, it's not about what is actually effective. It's what they think they could get out of it, unfortunately.
I woke up and then went back to sleep. Now I'm up, or now I'm about to get up. Well, you have a wonderful day, Blue-Eyed.
Indeed.
Even going back to the election, let's say 2020, you believe, was on the up and up in the vote counts. I'm selling bridges, by the way. We can clearly point to the press and how fucking dirty they were. You can do this with almost any thing that's major in the world today. Global warming, it's press-made bullshit. Race relations, this is all press done. Education, it's all pushed by the press. Mamdani, he's held up by the press, a press that just wants a communist shitbag.
Yeah. Well, look at the transgender surgeries that they keep pushing. The media pushes that more than anyone else.
It's all pushed by these shitbags. And what they'll do is, like, I just saw that Megan Rapinoe talking about how the conservatives lost the gay argument, so then they went after the trans people. No, it's the trans people. It makes no sense. If you're gay and you want to go play sports, you're still playing in the league you're supposed to be in.
Yeah. Transgenderism is largely a product of the last 10 years. It was almost unheard of before that.
Let's be real. Transgenderism is largely a product of a fucking pedophile.
Well, I mean, yeah, but they burned most of his books in Nazi Germany. That's what those book burnings were, by the way.
In fact, most of your sexual liberation bullshit is pushed by pedophiles under the guise of psychology. And the media picks it up and goes, well, look, the psychologists say. And by the time you see what psychologist is saying it, John Money's name has been removed 100 times over.
Yeah. How many people are impacted by that shouldn't be? I mean, they're forcing this stuff on people. Like regular gay kids are being forced into this transgenderism nonsense.
Yep.
Not to mention people with autism. the people with actual gender dysphoria are lost in the shuffle, and they're the ones that are really going to suffer here.
Dangerous. I will bring you on a stream one day for talking about the media. We'll do it. Remind me, and I will do it. Fuck it. We can even just set up. Let's talk about the media. Fuck them. Now, for the next several days, I'm going to be indisposed. I won't be able to do streaming. I might be able to squeak one in tomorrow. I will try my best, but no promises because I am still very sick and this does take a lot out of me. But then after that, I definitely won't be able to until Sunday at the earliest. So sorry, guys. I want to be doing more streams, but life is rough right now. It's so rough. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Thank you so much for the donations. You guys are so kind. Jack, anything you want to chill?
I'll drop a link to a cool video. As always, thank you guys so much for the tips and all the support you give us. We really do appreciate it. Keeps the show going. Monkey, I hope you feel better.
I appreciate it. To be fair, this is me reminding you. You're going to have to remind me again. I'm just telling you because I will forget we had this conversation. I will forget this stream as soon as I go to sleep.
You're busy murdering people in your dreams.
All right, guys. Jack, a pleasure as always.
Always glad to be here.
Monk got the new Pokemon game and he's addicted. No, I did not. I don't have a Switch 2. I would like to play the new Pokemon game. You guys know how I like Pokemon, but I don't have it. Guys, take care of yourselves. I love you. We'll see you on the next one. Bye now.
Bye, everybody.
It's getting harder to breathe and you shitheads want me to sing.